Macau are set to fall 3%, and that would be the first yearly decline we've seen since 2016. So that's not a great story. A lot of that has been because of geopolitical uncertainty, ranging from trade, which is a narrative that maybe looks a bit better as of 5 minutes ago when I last checked, right. And in relation to Hong Kong, disruptions in travel because of the ongoing protests. But today it looks like Hong Kong may actually prove to be a bit of a boon to Macau. Reuters reporting that China President Xi Jinping are looking to really build out Macau as a financial hub, to create a stock exchange, do more to diversify the economy of that region away from just gambling. And of course, that could bring more people in the door and could get people to gamble.
And President Xi attitude toward Macau is so critical. Right. Early years, remember, he sort of cut back on some of the high spending for some of the leaders in the country, and it really hurt Macau badly. So if he's saying, let's go with Macau, that's big news for Macau as well as Wynn.
Yeah, not only gets people to the enclave, but you're exactly right. VIP gambling has been such a big weakness point, not only for Wynn, but casino operators in the region more broadly. So that may be a narrative that Xi is changing, and that could be a big boon to some of these companies.
So there's a headline, President Xi likes gambling in Macau. So we go with that? Okay. Maybe, sort of. Okay, many thanks to Kaylee Lyons. Up next, central banks in the United States and Europe are getting ready for the new year with their decisions this week. We talk with Simona Makuta. She is State Street Global Advisors Senior Economist. This is Balance of Power. We are on Bloomberg Television and on radio.
This is a Bloomberg Market Minute. Stock shot to record highs after a tweet by President Trump announcing the U.S. and China were close to a big trade deal. Both sides would like to avoid new tariffs on Chinese imports, which are set to take effect this weekend unless a deal is reached. Right now, the Dow is up 116 points, or 0.4% to 28,027. The Nasdaq's up 25, S&P 500's up 15. eBay launched a new app that lets users buy and sell vehicles on their smartphones. Sellers can snap a photo of the license plate, the company says, and the eBay Motors app will automatically add key details like the make, model, and year. Pepsi plans to offer a new way to get a jolt of caffeine. The snack and beverage giant will start selling Pepsi Cafe in the U.S. in April. The drink will blend the taste of coffee and cola and nearly double the amount of caffeine in a regular Pepsi. It'll come in 2 flavors, original and vanilla. Martin DeCaro, Bloomberg Radio.
Why do hedge funds and other alternative managers rely on Pershing? Mark Alderati, a managing director at BNY Mellon's Pershing and head of Prime Services, explains.
In today's environment of market volatility, Pershing's Prime Services is well positioned to support the needs of hedge funds and other alternative investment managers. Whether it's customized financing or securities lending solutions, platform access, or business expansion, BNY Mellon's Pershing is a prime broker who's committed to this business and agile enough to meet your evolving demands. Pershing helps to solve the needs of clients by advocating for them, providing unwavering strength, deep supply, and award-winning service that is at the core of everything we do. Find out what sets Pershing's prime brokerage team apart.
Learn more about the unique and industry-leading solutions for hedge funds and other alternative managers offered by BNY Mellon's Pershing. Visit our website at Pershing.com. Pershing LLC, member FINRA, NYSE, SIPC.
Hi, everyone. Al Roker here. As a guy with his own catchphrase, I appreciate that after 75 years, Smokey's only said,
"Only you can prevent wildfires."
But I'm filling in because there's a lot more to report. Like when it's dry or windy. Be careful burning yard waste, because wildfires can even start in your neck of the woods. Go to SmokeyBear.com to learn more about wildfire prevention. Brought to you by the U.S. Forest Service, your state forester, and the Ad Council.
We could call it Bloomberg Awesome, but Bloomberg Best is accurate and less embarrassing to say.
Analysts are raising questions about rising competition and higher costs.
June Grazo and Ed Baxter.
It is the first company to be public in the space tourism industry.
Bloomberg Best.
That was AutoNation CEO Cheryl Miller.
Weekday evenings at 5 Eastern on Bloomberg Radio, the Bloomberg Business app, and BloombergRadio.com. Bloomberg, the world is listening.
Looking ahead, we will be monitoring
and also let's see how the risks to the outlook play out. So I think we are looking for a prolonged pause. That was the message I got from yesterday.
And one of the risks that we were talking about, the Fed was talking about, was trade. Does it feel that that's a bit diminished now? Now, we don't know what's going to happen this weekend yet, but the president's saying we're pretty close.
Do we want to take that chance and conclude that now is the winning time? We hope so. I mean, we really do tend to try to drown out the noise a little bit and focus on the incentives that we believe both sides have to de-escalate at this stage. So we are definitely assuming in our baseline for 2020 that we do have a phase one deal and that we do have some tariff relief. The timing is hard to tell.
At the same time, as you go below the top line numbers, as an investor looking into 2020, there are some divergences. It's not all headed in the same direction. Some things are going up, some things are going down. For example, services versus manufacturing.
In core to our house view for many months, we've been talking not about just one divergence between manufacturing and services, but really also between business investment and consumer spending. And the interesting thing, this is not just a U.S. theme, but we see this around the globe. The way we look at it is to say that there is actually resilience in this divergence, right? We are not firing on all cylinders, but the cylinders that matter most for the economy, namely consumer spending and services, those are firing. So we look at all of this and conclude that we see the glass half full.
And so another divergence has been the U.S., particularly in equities, versus Europe in particular. Do you see that continuing into the new year?
So I think you have to differentiate between the very recent past, where actually European equities have caught up a little bit. There is a long way to go, but in our broad view that the U.S. slows slightly in 2020, the rest of the world does a little bit better, you are looking at a bit of a closing of that performance gap. And in fact, we do believe that if you do get trade de-escalation, that could benefit Europe more than the U.S. because Europe is more exposed to the global economic cycle, external demand, etc. So you could potentially actually see more of an upside in Europe.
Which takes us to Frankfurt and Madame Lagarde's premiere as the president of the ECB. What did you take away from what she said, what the ECB said today?
I think my point, the core conclusion for me is that there is no urgency for immediate action. Again, let's watch and see how the economic data unfolds. There is obviously still early but broadening signs of a bottoming out in the global manufacturing cycle. That speaks to the German situation very, very directly. If that really materializes, strengthens over the course of the next few months, I think it should allow the ECB to, just assess. I think they are not in a rush to reverse course and normalize, but at some point they will want to normalize.
Well, and they're assessing the ECB, but also Madame Lagarde, I thought, was pretty explicit in saying we need a little help here. We need some fiscal help. And by the way, can't the European Union figure out what it means to be investing in green? I thought she was pretty direct in saying you need to get moving, guys.
They've been saying, not just the ECB, but many central banks around the world have been sort of desperately calling for additional levers of policy, right? This is a problem because we've been very one-handed in terms of the policy response, and we do need to do something more. When she first came in as the head of the ECB, our initial response was that perhaps she might have more impact, not just on monetary policy, but on fiscal policy. But it's a lot of hurdles to be crossed. I think, however, being more vocal, more direct, more specific about what the ECB would like to see, it helps. It helps the cause and sort of build that case.
Yeah, it doesn't hurt to have been a senior French politician either. I mean, she sort of knows her way around over there, which is encouraging. Okay, many thanks to Simona Makuta. She's from State Street Global Advisors. And now for Bloomberg First Word News, we go to Mark Crumpton.
David, as we've been reporting, the House Judiciary Committee argued through a marathon session today ahead of voting to send impeachment charges against President Trump to the full House. Speaker Nancy Pelosi sounded confident Democrats will have the votes to impeach the president next week, but she said it's up to individual lawmakers to weigh the evidence and decide for themselves. Republicans seem unwavering in their opposition to impeaching the president. The Judiciary Committee rejected Republican Jim Jordan's amendment that would have eliminated the first article of impeachment, which accuses the president of abuse of power. North Korea is criticizing the United States for its criticism of Pyongyang's ballistic missile test. The U.S. called the action hostile provocation. The North called the United States' comments foolish and said the U.S. may have blown its chance to salvage nuclear negotiations. This comes just weeks ahead of a deadline set by leader Kim Jong-un for Washington to offer mutually acceptable terms to revive the nuclear talks. Hundreds of people joined an evening demonstration among Hong Kong's skyscrapers Thursday, marking 6 months since the city's protest movement began. The crowd chanted Hong Kong people revenge in anger at police use of tear gas and widespread arrests. The government isn't showing any signs of making further concessions. A fire broke out on Russia's only aircraft carrier today. 12 sailors were hurt while putting out the flames. The carrier has been deployed in recent years to Syria in support of the Russian military campaign there. The vessel has had a troubled record. In 2012, it broke down in the Bay of Biscay and had to be towed thousands of miles to its home port. In 2009, it spilled hundreds of tons of oil off the coast of Ireland and caught fire, an accident in which one sailor died. And last year, a crane fell through its deck. Global news 24 hours a day, on air and on Quick Take by Bloomberg, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in over 120 countries. I'm Mark Crumpton. This is Bloomberg. David?
Thanks very much, Mark. Coming up, we talk with the second highest executive in New York State, Lieutenant Governor of New York, Kathy Hochul. She joins us to talk about her new role as chair of the Democratic Lieutenant Governors Association. This is Balance of Power on Bloomberg Television and Radio.
You're not supposed to begin the race before the start.
Did you know BT's business broadband comes with an always connected guarantee?
Always connected? I can't guarantee that. Nobody can.
BT can.
No, it's impossible. What if a squirrel bites through your cable?
That's when the 4G backup kicks in.
4G backup?
Yup.
Oh. Well, squirrels can't bite through 4G.
Exactly.
BT Business Broadband with the always connected, squirrel-proof guarantee. BT, beyond limits. Subject to availability. T's and C's apply.
Hey, NFL fan, can't watch the game? Can't be there? No biggie. With your TuneIn Premium membership, you already have an all-access pass to every team and every game in the league. Amazing, right?
Steps up, floats it towards, at the goal line, it's intercepted!
Listen live as the action unfolds, or on demand when you can. Anytime, anywhere, all season long.
Right side, it is caught, it is in for the right side for the touchdown.
Search NFL today.
And breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
The relentless trade drama continued to dominate sentiment on American equity markets, with stocks rising to all-time highs after Donald Trump tweeted he's very close to a deal. Then the S&P 500 drifted lower over the next 3 hours as investors weighed whether China will meet demands to buy farm products in exchange for some tariff relief, with the threat of fresh levies looming over the talks. The Federal Reserve held rates steady and signaled hikes remain unlikely, fueling bets the economy will be strong enough to continue its solid expansion. Lale Tapchali, JOHCM portfolio manager, tells Bloomberg the Fed in 2020 will focus on inflation.
So the question is, can they generate inflation to change their view? Because that's probably the worst scenario, where growth picks up and suddenly you generate inflation, which then their message starts getting hawkish. Clearly, if you look at the indicators now, there's just not much of a sign of an inflation, so they're on a holding pattern.
We check the markets every 15 minutes throughout the trading day here on Bloomberg Radio. S&P 500 is up 0.5%, up 17. The Dow's up 0.4%, up 118. The Nasdaq's up 0.3%, up 29. The 10-year's down 26 seconds with a yield of 1.88%. West Texas Intermediate crude oil is up 1.2% at $59.46 a barrel. And COMEX gold's down 0.1% at $14.73 even per ounce. The dollar yen 109.20, the euro $1.11.15, and the British pound $1.31.18. U.S. business debt exceeded that of households for the first time since 1991, a potential warning sign for the economy as corporate investment continues to soften. Non-financial companies boosted debt at a faster 5.7% annual pace. That's a Bloomberg Business Flash. I'm Greg Jarrett. Now let's get back to Bloomberg Balance of Power with David Weston on Bloomberg Radio.
This is Balance of Power on Bloomberg Television and Radio. I'm David Weston. New York Lieutenant Governor Kathy Hochul wears several hats, including work on long-term economic plans for various regions throughout the state, addressing the lack of skilled workers and acting as liaison with the state's elected representatives down in Washington. Now she has yet another hat to wear, chair of the Democratic Lieutenant Governors Association, and I'm pleased to welcome New York Lieutenant Governor Kathy Hochul now to Bloomberg for today's Conversation in Chief. Madam Lieutenant Governor, thank you very much for being with us.
Delighted to be here, David.
Let me ask with a basic question. What does Lieutenant Governor do? You do this in New York, but now you're also chair of the Democratic Lieutenant Governors across the country. What do Lieutenant Governors do?
Every state has a different definition, but what I've done here in New York State is to champion the issues that are important to our administration. And I was out there, I was the face of the increase in the minimum wage, for example, paid family leave. I chair all the economic development councils around the state, so I'm on the ground making sure that we create jobs and help new businesses prosper. Something called workforce development. We're talking about critical job training skills so people from New York City to Plattsburgh, the employers have a well-trained, experienced workforce as well as the opportunity for individuals to have good jobs. So I get a chance to work on so many issues. Climate change, for example. You look at what's happened in Washington, this has created a whole new opportunity for those of us in state government to lead because we've had such an abject failure in Washington. And so when the president walks away from our obligations under the Paris Agreement to protect and save our planet, we can step up in New York and team up with others. So it's not defined, David, but it's very expansive.
Well, it is a wide range of important issues. Two issues. How much of that's private? How much is public? What do you do with private-public partnerships? Because I know in some of your economic development things, it's private and public. And how do you measure success?
Critically important because I come from a place that did not know what success was. I'm from Buffalo, New York. I saw what happened when the Bethlehem steel plants and the major manufacturing areas, they just left. And they left us high and dry for literally 2 or 3 decades. So we measure success by, are we keeping young people in communities that have been given up for lost in the past? We have turned the corner. There are more millennials and young people going to upstate communities that have been abandoned before. New York City, a hot magnet for technology. I mean, that's a barometer of success. How many jobs we've created, how much investment we've had, major infrastructure projects here in New York City in particular, airports, bridges, roads, the subway system. So we're measuring because we're now creating a whole new system that is now functioning, and the contrast between what's going on in the state of New York. And I served as a member of Congress in Washington, so I know what dysfunction and gridlock looks like. It's night and day. And that's why, as chair of the Democratic Lieutenant Governors Association, I'm talking about what we can do in our capacities as lieutenant governors, not just what's good for our state, but what's good for the nation, and that is to elect more Democrats.
So talk about that agenda in your new role as chair. Is that sort of a best practices? Sort of, let's all get together and talk about what we're doing and talk about what we could share? Or how do you lead that group?
So we are a political operation. We are a sanctioned National Democratic Committee. I'm a member of the DNC. I work closely with Tom Perez, our national chairman, who also comes from Buffalo like myself. I've known him a long time. And he has had a 50-state strategy, saying that there's no state, regardless of whether it's purple or red, that we will leave untouched and not field strong candidates. So what I do, I'll be out there helping, identifying races where our involvement can matter, fundraising, making sure that people have access to good polling and data, and helping them literally win races. And having won races in the state of New York, New York is not all Manhattan and Brooklyn. Right. Upstate New York is very conservative. That's where I won a seat in Congress. So when we go to places like North Carolina to help the lieutenant governor, a new Democratic governor, be there to be a partner to Roy Cooper, that's important. And I can speak to those people. I can talk about how you frame our values as Democrats in a way that'll resonate with working men and women who feel they've been abandoned up until now. So it's an opportunity to talk about messaging in the areas that we need to win for our lieutenant governors, but it also helps. What we're doing out there is paving the way for our Democratic candidate next November.
Is it harder because New York is perceived as so blue? It's sort of like it's almost a foregone conclusion. It's hard to stir people up, unlike Michigan or Wisconsin or Pennsylvania, maybe Florida.
Well, it depends on what part of New York State you're from. I mean, the population is in a intensely blue area. The geographic area is intensely red. And I've straddled both worlds successfully, again, having represented the blue area in Congress and now representing the entire state. So I know the issues that matter to people. They love the fact, regardless of where you live, that we are now working on making prescription drugs more affordable. And one of the reasons I won my seat in Congress, won over Republican voters in a seat I never had a shot to win, was I talked about protecting Medicare and issues that resonated across party lines. That's what we need to do more of. Remind the voters, remind Democrats who've abandoned us, who thought we were not fighting for them, that no one has your back more than the Democratic Party. And I can make sure as chair of the party of this particular political organization, the Democrat Lieutenant Governors, who have a better pulse than anybody of what's going on in these states, because we're out there every single day, of how we can get that done and deliver more victories for Democrats.
We're talking with Kathy Hochul. She's the Lieutenant Governor of the state of New York. I say all politics is local, I've heard. Let's talk about local, particularly for Bloomberg viewers. SALT, state and local taxes. It's a real thorn in a lot of the sides of people who are watching this right now. Is there any chance of making progress on that in Washington?
The governor and I are working on this intensely because, to me, it was a knife through the heart of New Yorkers, done by a New Yorker. I mean, this is Donald Trump, who has his parting gift to this state that he's
Former New Yorker.
As he's abandoned the state because he turned upside down this whole fundamental principle of taxation that has been in place since Abraham Lincoln was president. No double taxation. And as a result, New Yorkers are paying $16 billion more in taxes. With the signing of a pen on that legislation, it hurt us deeply. We've sued in court. We've tried to find alternatives, charitable organizations that people contribute to. I wish I could give you an answer that we're solving this. I think it also comes down to having a new occupant in the White House who understands that states like New York, California, New Jersey are important states, and the fundamental unfairness of taxing people twice on their hard-earned money is unconscionable. I believe it's unconstitutional.
How long is your term as chair?
I have a 4-year,
Lieutenant
Governor.
Of the Democratic
it's a 1-year term. I just took office this week. I'll be in this position. I'll be going to DNC meetings. I'll be involved in the convention all the way through 2020. So this is our opportunity that we never had before, because when I was first elected, we only had 14 Democratic Lieutenant Governors. Now we have 24. We had huge gains, and all the action is now in the state houses. Stay tuned.
It sure is. Exactly. We'll stay tuned. Hope you come back and give us an interim report on how you're doing.
Love to. Thank you.
Great to have you with us. That's New York Lieutenant Governor Kathy Hochul. Coming up, President Trump signals progress on a trade deal with China. Is it real, or is it yet another tease? We talk with former U.S. Ambassador to China, Max Baucus. That's next. This is Balance of Power on Bloomberg Television and on radio.
Make their Christmas wishes come true. Whether they love Disney's Frozen 2, want to jet off on Barbie's Dream Plane, or ready up with the Fortnite Battle Royale collection. At littlewoods.com, you'll find all the toys they love, all with inclusive delivery and free returns. Own Christmas. Shop now at littlewoods.com.
This week at Tesco, whole beef roasting joints and whole legs of lamb are half price. That's a whole lot of halves off a whole lot of wholes. What a mouthful. Tesco, delivering Christmas for 100 years. Max 2 per customer, selected stores, excludes Express, ends 31st of December.
Hey, can't watch the big NBA game because your life's just too busy? I've got some news for you. TuneIn Premium is the answer to all your problems. Hear every home and away game live or on demand everywhere you go. Just search NBA to listen.
Want to hear about the latest and greatest things to listen to on TuneIn? For reminders of the biggest live sports games, debates, and breaking news stories, follow @TuneIn on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to stay connected with the audio that matters to you.
From ESPN and the award-winning producers of The Sterling Affairs comes the latest season of 30 for 30 podcasts. 4 brand new stories of espionage.
He wanted this team to be the Barcelona of women's basketball.
Resilience.
I started to scream. I tried to get away.
Corruption.
It's the culture of win at all costs.
And rebirth.
How will we ever rebuild it?
30 for 30 podcasts, season 6. Listen and favorite 30 for 30 podcasts on TuneIn.
Did you know your favorite radio stations are in your pocket? Yes, the TuneIn app lets you listen to the same radio stations you pick up on your home or car radio anywhere you want. To see all the stations broadcasting in your area, find the local radio section on the home screen. Keep it local with TuneIn.
This is Balance of Power on Bloomberg Television and Radio. I'm David Weston. President Trump says we're very, very close to what he calls a, quote, big trade deal with China. And reportedly, the U.S. is now offering to dial back some of those tariffs that it's imposed. Welcome now, Max Baucus. He's former U.S. ambassador to China. He also, by the way, served 6 terms in the United States Senate, representing his home state of Montana as a Democrat. So, Mr. Ambassador, thank you so much for being back with us.
You bet, Dave.
Okay, read the tea leaves, so to speak, for us here. Are we really, really close to an interim deal with China?
I think we're close. I think it's very important, though, that the December 15 tariffs do not go into effect, because that's going to have a very chilling effect on the Chinese leadership. It's going to strengthen the hardliners in China, so it's very important that we not increase tariffs on December 15th. Now, if we do not, if there is agreement, then lots of questions come up. Number one, how big of a deal is it? Number two, the details are always in the fine print. One doesn't know how this is going to be interpreted. And add to that, we have to remember as Americans that there's no international tribunal, there's no independent judiciary to decide whether or not each party is living up to its end of the deal. So it's really up to China, it's up to the United States. And one final point here, frankly, is as it's reported in the press, it puts a lot of pressure on China, because basically it's the U.S. that's calling the shots. The U.S. will decide whether to, quote, snap back and increase those tariffs, depending upon whether the U.S. thinks China's living up to its end of the deal.
Well, that's a key element. There was a report, Bloomberg reported today, that the United States may be proposing not just suspending the December 15 tariffs, but actually cutting by 50% tariffs on like $350 billion worth of goods, but with the understanding that we can put it right back, as you say, snap back at any time if we think you're not, in our judgment, I guess, complying with this. Is that an effective way to deal with the Chinese? Because there has been questions in the past whether the Chinese really followed through on their agreements.
Well, there's clearly been that question. When I served as ambassador to China, I ran into that a lot. China will say something, sounds good, they'll write it down on paper, but don't really follow through. Something else to remember here, though, there's kind of a disconnect, I think, between the people in China and the Chinese government, or maybe even the American people and the American government. Chinese people, I go to China often, I talk almost daily to my Chinese friends. Chinese people like Americans. They like American values. They look up to American values. They just know that in their country, their system, they've got to live under what they have. It's okay. They're making money. They're doing okay. They're raising their family and so forth. But Chinese people like American people. And I think we should always keep that in mind, not get too wrapped around the axle about the governments going back and forth, fighting each other.
Yeah, I'm sure that's right. The people are critical. At the same time, we have 2 leaders who seem to have pretty strong egos, and President Xi and President Trump. Both of them I seem to feel that they need to come out of this saying, I won.
Yeah.
Is that possible? Can we do something that says President Trump can come to the United States and look at what I got for us, and President Xi can say, I didn't give up that much, or I didn't give up our sovereignty, or I didn't give up our power, our status?
Well, saving face is important, both to President Trump and to President Xi. But there's no doubt in my mind, if we kind of split the baby, then wrap it around a nice big bow of red, ribbon, and it's going to then be able to be presented by each president as okay. And basically, the good part there is that'll help stabilize markets. That'll get rid of some of the unpredictability, and that's very important.
Yeah, so there's our headline that's just crossing as we've been talking, that President Trump reportedly will be meeting with his advisor to talk about the U.S.-China trade deal at 2:30 this afternoon, so just coming up in a little less than 2 hours from right now. So it seems to be moving fairly quickly. We do have this deadline that's coming up on Sunday, but let me ask a more basic question. Let's assume we get this interim agreement. We don't know what's in it, but we have some sense of what's in it. Will we have accomplished very much? Because we have to remember, we had trade relations with China before we started this. It went backwards, I think it's fair to say. Are we going to be well ahead of where we started out, or are we basically going back to neutral?
Well, if their current tariffs are rolled back 50%, that's huge progress. That makes a big difference. Then we can start with that base. But having said all that, really the concerns the United States government has with China go beyond trade. it's national security, this geopolitical positioning. There's a lot of other factors. And the main point here is we really, as a country, have to recognize China is China. China is a country. China's not going anywhere. This could be the biggest country in the world not too many years down the road. We have to deal with China with respect and find a way to deal with China so that they deal with us with respect, too.
So, Mr. Ambassador, you've said this before, that the real issue is national security, it's tech, it's intellectual property, it's theft, things like that. Yeah. That's the real guts of it. That's where we have to get to. Is there a way for us to make real progress on that without challenging President Xi's sovereignty? Because this is something he staked out his reputation on.
I think there's a way. Nothing's 100%. We have to address these issues. But sovereignty is so important to any country, especially to China. And China's not going to give up its so-called Made in China 2025, right. Its subsidies, its focus on new technologies in the future. Because after all, China wants to be a big, growing country, just like any country would. I take my hat off to China for trying to accomplish all that. So we want to do it fairly, but that's a difficult part because Chinese sense of fairness is different from American sense of fairness, and we have to understand that.
Fascinating. Okay. Thank you so much to former U.S. Ambassador to China and former Montana Senator Max Baucus. I'm happy to say we're going to have more with the ambassador in our second hour coming up on Bloomberg Radio, including a discussion of passing the USMCA, that's the NAFTA successor, in the Senate. And we want you to stay tuned now for special coverage of the UK election results. That will be coming at 5 p.m. Eastern Time today. That's 10 p.m. London when those polls close. This is Balance of Power on Bloomberg Television and on Bloomberg Radio.
This is a Bloomberg Pursuits look at luxury. Do you like scotch? Like really, really good scotch? Well, get your wallet ready. The whiskey collection of prolific collector Richard Gooding is going on sale in February and April with Whiskey Auctioneer. The largest private whiskey collection ever to hit the block, some 3,900 bottles, includes rarities from Bowmore and Springbank. Watches of Switzerland is in early talks for small U.S. takeovers as the luxury watch market increasingly goes direct to consumer. The UK's biggest seller of luxury timepieces, which went public in May, has also been pumping investment into expanding e-commerce and refurbishing brick-and-mortar stores while phasing out fashion brands like Hugo Boss and Michael Kors. Ray Dalio, the billionaire investor, revealed he has a new protege, none other than hip-hop entrepreneur Sean Diddy Combs. Founder of investment management firm Bridgewater Associates posted a 25-minute video of a recent mentoring session where the two explore techniques including radical open-mindedness. I'm Andrew Rote, Bloomberg Radio.
Intellectual property, one of the most valuable things we market in Asia.
I understand you're trying to rival the likes of San Francisco, New York.
We have our own brand of intellectual property.
Let's focus first on this U.S.-China trade story.
Find out why it's so valuable.
Do you need to see substance in an agreement or just that they stop shouting at each other?
Bloomberg Daybreak Asia, tonight at 6 Eastern on Bloomberg Radio, the Bloomberg Business app, and BloombergRadio.com. Bloomberg, the world is listening.
You know your body, and you know when something's off, when something doesn't feel quite right. Don't ignore symptoms like fatigue, joint pain, rashes, and fever. They could be signs of lupus. Listen to your body. Take care of yourself. We're here to help you take control of your health. Learn how at BeFierceTakeControl.org. Brought to you by the Lupus Foundation of America and the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention.
Why has J.D. Power ranked Commonwealth Financial Network #1 in independent advisor satisfaction among financial investment firms for the 6th straight time? We think it comes down to one thing: you. Because it's your input and feedback that keeps us focused on what's most important to you and your clients and continually pushes us to be the best we can be. Maybe that's why we receive top marks in every category of the J.D. Power 2019 Advisor Satisfaction Survey. They named us #1 in client support, #1 in firm leadership, #1 in operational support, #1 in compensation, #1 in professional development support, and #1 in technology support. Ready to partner with the best? Call Commonwealth at 866-462-3638 or visit commonwealth.com and feel the power. Member FINRA/SIPC, a registered investment advisor. For 2019 J.D. Power award information, visit jdpower.com/awards.
From the financial capital of the world, 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, on the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is Bloomberg Radio.
From Bloomberg World Headquarters, I'm Charlie Pellet. The Dow, the S&P, and NASDAQ are all advancing. We are off our session highs, but stocks are gaining amid a flurry of trade headlines that has stoked optimism. The Trump administration will reach a partial trade deal with China ahead of Sunday's tariff deadline. President Trump will be meeting with his advisors at 2:30 Wall Street time. The relentless trade drama dominating sentiment on U.S. equity markets today. The S&P 500 did trade at a record after the president tweeted, quote, he is very close to a deal. The S&P, though, drifted lower over the next 3 hours as investors weighed whether China will meet demands, only to turn higher on a report that a tariff delay announcement is likely. So here's where we stand. S&P up now by 15 at 31.57, a gain of 0.5%. The Dow up 123 points, up 0.4. NASDAQ up 27. That is a gain of 0.3%. The European Central Bank kept monetary stimulus unchanged at President Christine Lagarde's first policy meeting this morning, shifting the focus to when she will announce her review of the institution's strategy for safeguarding the Eurozone economy.
Based on our regular economic and monetary analysis, we decided to keep the key ECB interest rates unchanged. We expect them to remain at their present or lower levels until we have seen the inflation outlook robustly converge to a level sufficiently close to or below 2%.
In the U.S., the government's producer price index held steady in November. Core PPI, which excludes food and energy, fell 0.2%, second drop in 3 months. The Bloomberg Consumer Comfort Index up for the fourth week in a row, running at the highest since October. It is the latest sign consumer confidence is on the mend. 10-year down 28.30 seconds, looking at a yield now of 1.88%. Gold down 0.4%, 14.68 the ounce. Crude oil, West Texas Intermediate, down 1.1%, 59.53 a barrel. Recapping, stocks higher, S&P up 15, up 0.5. The Dow up 112, up 0.4. NASDAQ up 26, a gain of 0.3%. 102 on Wall Street. Time now for the Market Drivers Report with a focus on American depository receipts. And here is Dave Wilson.
Thanks, Charlie. ADRs are higher along with U.S. shares. The S&P ADR index is up 0.5%, and that matches the gain for the S&P 500 of 0.5%. European bank ADRs are higher after European Central Bank President Christine Lagarde said the Euro region's economic slump may be bottoming. Deutsche Bank has gained 4%. France's BNP Paribas has risen 2.4%. Spain's Banco Santander has also climbed 4%. And BBVA is up 3.7%. Hong Kong's Melco Resorts and Entertainment has advanced 6.2%. The casino company does business in the Chinese city in Macau, and Reuters reported that Chinese President Xi Jinping is about to unveil plans to diversify the city's economy. Now, Germany's Henkel has lost 5.3% in limited U.S. trading. The household product maker forecasts a lower profit margin next year and said sales may be a little changed after adjusting for deals and currency swings. And Brazil's Sabesp has dropped 3.4%. The country's lower house approved a different version of a sanitation services bill than one passed by the Senate. The decision may delay any future sale of the water company controlled by the city of Sao Paulo. Charlie.
And we thank you very much. Dave Wilson following those ADRs. Recapping, stocks higher. S&P up 17, up 0.5. I'm Charlie Pellet. That's a Bloomberg Business Flash.
This is Balance of Power.
We have the strongest economy by far in the world.
We're going to grow our trade relationship.
I know what's broken. I know how to fix it.
Where the world of politics meets the world of business.
They've got the money they need to run a very competitive race.
We've got now a real crunch few days for Brexit.
We want certainty in the markets. We want certainty in our trading relationships.
The administration is trying to create a new divided world.
Balance of Power with David Weston on Bloomberg Radio.
Great Britain goes to the polls. The United States offers to dial back China tariffs, and Congress moves forward with the new version of NAFTA. From the Bloomberg Interactive Broker Studio, welcome to the second hour of Balance of Power. Democrats extracted some changes to the USMCA, that successor to the NAFTA agreement, and Republican leadership appears ready to go forward to ratification. But there may be some delays, with Majority Leader McConnell saying he won't consider USMCA until the Senate is through with impeachment.
We will not be doing USMCA in the Senate between now and the end of next week.
Former U.S. Ambassador to China Max Baucus is still with us. So if they don't get it done by the end of next week, they're into next year. And Chuck Grassley, the senator from Iowa, yesterday told me, well, they're required now to just focus on impeachment until they're done with it. So they can't possibly get to USMCA until sometime well in the new year. Is he right?
Who am I to question Chuck Grassley? No, basically this comes down to how much Mitch McConnell wants to get the trial in the Senate out of the way. And my sense is he wants to move very, very quickly. That's very important to him. And the new revised NAFTA is of secondary importance. However, if he wanted to, and if there's a lot of pressure to get the revised NAFTA passed, he could find a way, he could dual track the two proceedings, find a way to bring it up and get it passed. But I sense he's going to wait.
You spent a long time in the Senate, so you know that institution terribly well. Why would it be in Republicans' best interest or in Mitch McConnell's best interest to get rid of impeachment quickly? Why isn't there an argument that if they drag it out, it makes it more difficult for senators on the Democratic side who are running for president to really spend time and attention on the primaries?
Well, first, Mitch McConnell's up for election, too. He wants to get home.
That's a good point.
Second, Mitch does not want any new evidence, like bad information on tax returns or to show up in the interim. All the information, all the evidence with respect to impeachment is already out, so he wants a quick vote. He can keep, he thinks, all of his Republican senators online, so he wants it done quickly.
So some Republican senators, including your former colleague Lindsey Graham, have been saying we shouldn't take any witnesses at all. Let's just have the argument and decide it. We know what we need to do. Let's take the vote. If you were back in the Senate and you were one of the jurors, therefore, what would your position be on that?
I'd say go ahead. We don't need more witnesses. My view is the evidence is out. We know enough already. Let's vote.
So what is the upshot of this ultimately? If, in fact, there is a vote, and it looks right now, absent new evidence, as you suggest, that the president will be acquitted. There'll be bills of impeachment, but he'll be acquitted. Does that hurt the president or help the president? Does it give him the argument that, okay, you've taken a look at it and I'm innocent?
Well, I think that it helps him, frankly. He's going to say, look at those Democrats over there in the House, those crazy folks over there. They brought these articles of impeachment, and then look at the Senate by overwhelming majority. They decided not to throw me out. So that shows that they were wrong over there, and I was right, and let's get on with it.
So you served as the Senate Finance Chair at one point, the job that now Chuck Grassley has. So you would have been responsible for getting USMCA through the Senate, as it were. Is this good for both Democrats and Republicans from what you know of where we are now on this successor agreement to NAFTA?
I do. First of all, it's an agreement which reduces uncertainty. It reduces speculation. If we had no agreement, there'd be a lot of uncertainty in the tech sector, in the auto sector, in the agriculture sector. This is a deal. It's not perfect, but it's a deal. Iowa farmers very much want this, and that means Donald Trump very much wants this. I think it's not bad. It's basically a rewrite of NAFTA. It's not that different, but at least it helps.
Oh, so that's a really important point, because we've spent a long time and a lot of effort, a lot of ink, virtual ink spent now on NAFTA and on USMCA. The president came in saying it was a total disaster, one of the worst agreements he'd ever seen in his life. And now it looks like we're going to get the new version of NAFTA. How much will we have accomplished? It's better than blowing up NAFTA, but is it really that much better than what we started with?
I think you summarized it better than blowing it up. But it's a little bit better. There's some provisions there which are helpful, but some industries don't like it at all. Like the pharmaceutical industry is very upset because Democrats were able to get a provision which reduces the protection of the pharmaceuticals. So that's, it's mixed.
And how does this play as we go into 2020, an election year for the president? If he, in fact, gets USMCA, which looks likely now, and he gets at least an initial phase one deal with U.S.-China, we have unemployment at a low rate, we have inflation at a low rate. That looks like a pretty strong position for the president to get reelected.
That's true. I mean, you can say, look, NAFTA is terrible. I fixed it. He's going to say that. There's some truth in that, not a lot of truth in that. The next question is, does he get a deal with China? We'll see. If he gets a big deal with China, there may not be that may not be an interim agreement. That might be the agreement up until 2020. But it comes down to whether the two agree. I think there's going to be some kind of an agreement because both sides want that.
Some kind of an agreement, but some of the things the president has proposed would be structural changes for the Chinese and their government. That sounds like a much longer and more difficult process.
That's a heavy lift. It gets to core sovereignty questions that China finds neuralgic. China is not going to budge very much on those core issues.
Even if they don't budge on the issues and fundamentally change their way of doing government, will the president perhaps have made progress just by getting it on the table, in the agenda, and affect Chinese behavior on the margin?
He'll affect behavior on the margin. I think politically, for him, the most important thing is he'll get a commitment by China to buy a lot of soybeans. And that's going to help a lot of farmers in Iowa, and that's going to help Republicans stay and vote Republican.
More soybeans than they were buying before we started all this?
This could be a big relief to them, and that's really all it takes.
Yeah, and then the question is, have they changed the supply chains with Brazil in the meantime?
Well, that's a big question. It makes it tough for China because China's coming back and saying, hey, Brazil is charging less for soybeans, so why do we want to pay more for American soybeans?
Which, as I understand, is one of the issues between the U.S. and China right now. Is it dollars or is it volume? Because it's a big difference.
Well, it's basically dollars, but what's happening here is that this couple years of tariffs imposed against China has disrupted supply chains, has disrupted markets, which can be difficult to get back.
That's the one thing we can be sure of. Okay, many thanks now to Ambassador Max Baucus for joining us today. Well, trade isn't the only thing on the congressional agenda. It needs to get some appropriations approved next week, or the government's going to shut down 8 days from now. We talked with Rohit Kumar. He's former Deputy Chief of Staff to Majority Leader Mitch McConnell. That's coming up next on Balance of Power on Bloomberg Radio.
What do you count? Interest rates?
If you get marginally higher interest rates, does that bring the PE multiple in?
Trade figures?
China driving a tectonic shift in the availability of money.
Employment data?
What is happening with the headcount?
You could just leave all that to us.
Is it a one-and-done tariff adjustment?
Tom Keene and Jonathan Farrow. Right where it counts. Bloomberg Surveillance. Weekday mornings at 7 Eastern on Bloomberg Radio, the Bloomberg Business app, and BloombergRadio.com. Bloomberg, the world is listening.
The possibility of lung cancer can be pretty scary, especially if you're one of approximately 8 million current or former smokers at high risk. That's why SaveByTheScan.org wants you to know that now there's a breakthrough low-dose CT scan that can detect lung cancer early, and it only takes 60 seconds. You stop smoking, now start screening. For an easy quiz to see if you're eligible, visit SaveByTheScan.org. It could save your life. SaveByTheScan.org is brought to you by the American Lung Association's Lung Force Initiative and the Ad Council.
Are you interested in a challenging and exciting career? One where you can be part of solving complex challenges across industries and geographies? Bloomberg's ever-expanding technology, data, news, and media services foster innovation, empower clients, and offer nearly limitless opportunities for career growth. Visit Bloomberg.com/careers today to view our current job opportunities. Bloomberg LP is an equal opportunity employer. The address once again is Bloomberg.com/careers.
Right now, Doctors Without Borders medical teams are operating in some of the most remote and dangerous corners of the world. When front yards become front lines, at the crossroads of conflict and epidemic, where there are no hospitals, that's where we operate. Your response is critical to our response in places where few others will go. That's where we operate. Learn more at Doctors Without Borders.
I've always loved a kitchen experiment, especially smoothies. I've blended all sorts of mad combinations. Strawberry and charcoal, broccoli and chocolate. Not my best, that. But when I test blenders in the Witch Lab, it's not about flavour, it's about performance. Our tests use proper tough stuff, hard ice, strong veg, rough nuts. And the blenders that can hack it are the only ones we recommend for your kitchen.
Which tests harder so you can buy smarter. Visit which.co.uk.
Smoked salmon for breakfast? Well, it is Christmas. At Asda, our extra special gin, juniper and lemon smoked salmon is just £4 for a 120-gram pack. Or for only £6, get a 200-gram pack of our extra special smoked salmon. Asda, let's make Christmas extra special. Selected stores subject to availability.
I wish me a Merry Christmas. I wish me a Merry Christmas. I wish me a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
Don't forget yourself this Christmas. Now you can choose from a range of extras like Amazon Music Unlimited, Audible, Amazon Prime Video, and caffeine on us. Search O2 Christmas Extras.
On selected tariffs for 3 or 6 months, not available to existing Amazon Video and Music or Audible customers. Terms apply.
This week at Tesco, whole beef roasting joints and whole legs of lamb are half price. That's a whole lot of halves off a whole lot of wholes. What a mouthful. Tesco, delivering Christmas for 100 years. Max 2 per customer, selected stores, excludes Express, ends 31st of December.
Whether you call yourself a Democrat, Republican, Independent, or something else, the road to 2020 is on TuneIn.
What a night! And a complete earthquake. This was
Follow every step of the Democratic primaries while hearing the latest headlines from the White House with live 24-hour news from CNN, MSNBC, Fox News Talk, and more.
We're closing in on the first results in the battle for the White House.
Experience the election through the sources you trust with the nonstop news channels on TuneIn.
Hey, NFL fan, can't watch the game? Can't be there? No biggie. With your TuneIn Premium membership, you already have an all-access pass to every team and every game in the league. Amazing, right?
Steps up, floats it towards, at the goal line, it's intercepted!
Listen live as the action unfolds or on demand when you can. Anytime, anywhere, all season long.
Right side, it is caught. It is in for the right side for the touchdown to Keenan.
Search NFL today. Want TuneIn to remind you when the big NFL game is about to get underway? Be sure notifications are allowed on your phone and search NFL on the TuneIn app. Find the game you want to hear under events and tap Notify Me. We'll let you know exactly when it's time to listen in for kickoff.
Want to know a quick, easy way to see if your favorite podcasts have a new episode available? Just go to the home screen on your TuneIn app and see the latest additions under the Your New Episode section. Happy listening.
Want to hear about the latest and greatest things to listen to on TuneIn? For reminders of the biggest live sports games, debates, and breaking news stories, follow @TuneIn on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to stay connected with the audio that matters to you.
Hey, NFL fan, can't watch the game? Can't be there? We've got you covered. With TuneIn Premium, you can listen to every NFL game live as it's happening.
LaShawn McCoy has an opening on the right side, punches into the end zone for the touchdown.
Or catch it later on demand.
Offset backs behind Mahomes. The give is to Williams. Starts right, cuts it back to the left, and blows into the end zone for the touchdown.
You call the plays. Follow the NFL anytime, anywhere, all season long with TuneIn Premium. Upgrade today.
Markets, headlines, and breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
From Bloomberg World Headquarters, I'm Charlie Pellet. The Dow, the S&P, and NASDAQ are all advancing. President Trump said to be meeting with trade advisors just over an hour from now. We've got the S&P up 19, up 0.6%. Stocks rising amid a flurry of trade headlines that stoked optimism the Trump administration will reach a partial trade deal with China ahead of Sunday's tariff deadline. The Dow advancing 148 points, up 0.5, and NASDAQ up 40. That is a gain of just about 0.5%. 10-year down 26.30 seconds, yield 1.88%. Gold down 0.4%, 14.68 the ounce. And West Texas Intermediate crude up 1.3%, 59.54 a barrel. Again, recapping equities higher, S&P up 19, up 0.6%. I'm Charlie Pellet. That's a Bloomberg Business Flash.
Thank you so much to Charlie Pellet from the Interactive Brokers Studio. This is Balance of Power. I'm David Weston. Majority Leader Mitch McConnell has said the Senate won't take up the question of USMCA until after an impeachment trial in the new year. But he doesn't have any choice but to move forward on appropriations if the government is not to shut down next week. Welcome now Rohit Kumar, who served as Senator McConnell's Deputy Chief of Staff. Mr. Kumar now heads Tax Policy Services for PwC. So welcome. It's great to have you with us, Rohit. Give us a sense of just how much that the Senate, the House and the Senate have to get done in order to avoid a shutdown at the end of next week.
Yeah, they still have quite a bit to accomplish. The federal government, all the discretionary accounts, and think about that as the Department of Defense, Department of Labor, EPA, Interior, and the like, are separately funded by 12 different pieces of legislation. Now, there's no way they're going to do 12 bills between now and Friday, December 20th, but they're looking at packaging them up in maybe 2 bills of 6 each. But they still have a fair number of agreements to reach, and there are always some sticky issues that crop up at this time of year on these measures. Probably most notably, and not unfamiliar to the listeners, is the continued dispute about funding of physical security at the border, or so-called border wall. I think that remains an outstanding issue. And the challenge here is, since none of these accounts have been fully funded through the end of the federal government's fiscal year, which is September 30th of 2020, if there is a shutdown, it is not a partial shutdown like we had last year. It is a complete shutdown of all of the discretionary accounts, and that will look and feel very different than the one we had last time.
So that's a really important distinction. Thank you for making it, because this would be much worse than we saw last time. At the same time, I wonder what the inclination is to really compromise and get this done. We had Chuck Schumer, he's the Senate Minority Leader, last week saying that basically we may well have a shutdown. This is what he said.
He seems to feel on the appropriations bills, my way or the highway. Well, that would show that he hasn't learned his lesson. Because if President Trump doesn't sit down with us and negotiate a bill, we'll have a second Trump shutdown.
So to put it directly, what's the chance of a second shutdown, whether you call it a Trump shutdown or somebody else's?
Sure. And, it's not surprising to see Senator Schumer take that public posture. That's, and designed to create leverage in the negotiation. I would expect no less. At the moment, I think the odds of a shutdown are low, but certainly not zero. They do appear to be making reasonable progress. It's slow, and the clock is ticking. They have till Friday of next week to get all of this done. But even if they can't get an agreement on all of the bills, all 12 bills, or maybe all of the bills except for the ones that dealing with the wall, there is the option to have another what we call continuing resolution, to continue to fund the government operations at the current level with no policy change into next calendar year. And if that were to happen, the date that is currently being eyed is February 14th. And the reason they're picking February 14th, not because it's Valentine's Day, but because they want to make sure that the next continuing resolution, if there is one, expires safely after the Senate has dealt with the impeachment trial, and that's expected to take at least a couple weeks in January, maybe the entire month. So they're looking at giving themselves into February just to be sure that if there's another action-forcing deadline, it is not happening in the middle of impeachment.
Rohit, when I talked to some people last week, I thought that there was sort of a consensus that a continuing resolution would be the way to go, or at least the way they ended up going. Has anything changed to make it more likely we actually may get at least some, or maybe even all, of the appropriations bills through?
Yeah, they've been sitting down and talking to each other, and they're actually, as is often the case, when you sit down and talk, you start to make some progress. And so I think they are starting to make real progress on getting maybe not all of the bills done. I think the wall funding will continue to be a sticking point, but a lot of the bills done. And part of it, what's going on is there is bipartisan disinclination for another continuing resolution. Both Senator McConnell, Majority Leader McConnell, and Speaker Pelosi have been very clear that they do not want another continuing resolution. It is bad policy. And so, they both are motivated to reach a conclusion here. They would reach them different ways left to their own devices, but they know that to get the conclusion that they both want, which is to write these bills, write them for the full year, not just have another kick the can down the road government funding bill, that they got to compromise with each other.
You've mentioned the wall a couple of times, Rohit. Is that exist in its own freestanding appropriations bill, or is it part of a larger appropriations bill governing part of the government?
Well, and primarily it lives inside the bill that would defund the Department of Homeland Security, because that's where physical barriers at the border would typically be funded. This time around, it's a little bit more complicated because, as folks will recall, the president used his emergency authority to transfer funds from several accounts to accounts to fund construction of a wall. And so now there's a collateral issue of, do you backfill the accounts that were taken from to fund the border wall construction? And if in doing so, does that somehow bless the president's decision to exercise that authority? And those accounts live in more than just one piece of legislation. So the issue has metastasized to a certain degree, because the accounts that were rated were not just in one bill. They represent accounts in several bills. And so you see this issue percolating in a smaller form across several pieces of several bills that would otherwise be totally devoid of this controversy.
Does the president feel perhaps even more pressure to get specific appropriations for the wall, given the fact we now have a federal district court down in El Paso enjoining nationwide use of defense military construction funds?
That's obviously a recent development, but this is also not unfamiliar territory in the sense that we've seen several district courts throughout the country issue nationwide injunctions. Those typically get appealed, and I think the administration probably feels pretty good about their chances on appeal. So I'm not sure that fundamentally changes the dynamic. This is more of a political exercise than anything else, and so the politics of funding are almost separate from whatever's happening, at the litigation stage.
But net, Rohit, if you were going to guess, you think it's quite possible we'll get at least a significant amount of the appropriations done, not with a continuing resolution, but done before next Friday?
Yeah. I think there's at least a 50-50 chance that some of these get fully funded throughout the federal government's fiscal year. But even failing that, there will be a lot of pressure to at least do a continuing resolution so that there isn't a shutdown over the week of Christmas, the week of New Year's.
Okay, that's really helpful, Rohit. I really appreciate it. That's Rohit Kumar of PricewaterhouseCoopers. One of the big issues, as we just talked about on appropriations, is building Mr. Trump's wall on our southern border. We talked with the former Justice Department official who was responsible for immigration litigation about 2 federal courts now ruling that the president can't use other funds for that wall, what it might be for appropriations, and what it might mean on appeal to the Supreme Court. That's coming up on Balance of Power, and we are on Bloomberg Radio.
This is a Bloomberg Market Minute. Stocks retreated from big early gains as doubt seeped into optimism that the Trump administration will reach a partial trade deal with China ahead of Sunday's tariff deadline. Still, we're green across the board with the Dow up 130 points, 0.4% to 28,041. The Nasdaq's up 35 points, that's 0.4%, and the S&P 500's up 0.5% or 17 points. Americans are projected to fall seriously behind on their credit card bills at the highest rate in a decade, and that's as banks push a record number of people to get plastic. The share of credit card borrowers who are at least 90 days past due on their accounts will probably increase to 2% next year. That's according to a forecast by TransUnion, the highest level since 2010. Home flipping is slowing down. A little more than 56,000 homes were flipped in the third quarter of 2019. Atom Data Solutions says that's down 13% from the prior quarter. Martin DeCaro, Bloomberg Radio.
Okay, kids, Dad's gonna teach you how to dance. First, spread your feet apart. Then, pump your knee, nod your head, shake your hips, and bite your lip ever so slightly. Now, with one hand in the air, point at people with the other hand. I call that the rock star.
Dance like a dad. It's a great way to make a moment with your kids.
Now, make a face like it just smells something bad.
Visit fatherhood.gov. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
Are you interested in a challenging and exciting career? One where you can be part of solving complex challenges across industries and geographies. Bloomberg's ever-expanding technology, data, news, and media services foster innovation, empower clients, and offer nearly limitless opportunities for career growth. Visit Bloomberg.com/careers today to view our current job opportunities. Bloomberg LP is an equal opportunity employer. The address once again is Bloomberg.com/career.
Ah, Christmas, a time for sharing gifts and laughter, and photos and videos. Make the most of it with a SIM-only deal packed with data from Tesco Mobile. Like a 10-gig SIM for just £13 a month. It's just one of the ways we're celebrating 100 years of great value. Go in store or search Tesco Mobile today. Tesco Mobile. Every little helps.
Ends 29th of December. 12-month contract and unlocked 4G-enabled phone required. Terms apply. See tescomobile.com/terms.
This week at Tesco, whole beef roasting joints, and whole legs of lamb are half price. That's a whole lot of halves off a whole lot of holes. What a mouthful. Tesco, delivering Christmas for 100 years. Max 2 per customer, selected stores, excludes Express, ends 31st of December.
Are you curious what others are listening to on TuneIn? Head to the trending section under Browse to see the most popular stations and podcasts among TuneIn listeners right now. Check it out. You might just discover something new for yourself.
Pascal gobbles up the rebound and slams it down. Catch your favorite NBA team right here on TuneIn.
A step back deep three is up and in.
Search NBA on TuneIn and hear all the action. The NBA lives on TuneIn.
Don't want to miss a second of your NFL team's next matchup? Let TuneIn remind you. Just make sure notifications are enabled on your phone and search for your team profile on the TuneIn app. Then, find the game you want under events and tap Notify Me. We'll send you an alert as soon as live coverage begins.
Those up, dart toward the end zone. Caught, ball, touchdown.
NFL fans, hear every live game on TuneIn Premium.
Mahomes throwing off the back foot. He wants McCall. Hardman, he's got the catch at the 15. Jukes at the 10. 5, touchdown.
Today, hear the home and away call as the New York Jets visit the Baltimore Ravens at 8:20 p.m. Eastern.
It's a block, 20, 25, 30. It's a foot race, 40.
At home or on the go, hear the home and away call of every NFL game this season on TuneIn Premium. Upgrade today.
Cutting for the end. Scores! On the goal line, Marshawn scores!
Hockey fans, the 2019-20 NHL season is here.
And tucks it home!
And with this team, it's really fun to be a part of a team like that.
You can hear the action live on TuneIn Premium. From regular season action to the All-Star Game and through the Stanley Cup in June. Hear the home and away call for every game, for every team live. At home or on the go, never miss a game with the NHL on TuneIn Premium. Upgrade today.
Start hearing more of what you want.
Upgrade to TuneIn Premium and get over 45 commercial-free music stations, live commercial-free news, and every live NFL, MLB, NBA, and NHL game. Visit TuneIn.com/premium to upgrade.
Hey, TuneIn listeners, Steve Kornacki here from NBC News. I want to tell you about a podcast I'm hosting called Article 2, Inside Impeachment. It's dedicated to bringing you the latest developments on the impeachment inquiry into President Trump. Every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, I talk to NBC News reporters who are closest to the story to break down what's new, what matters, and what it means for the 2020 election. Search and favorite Article 2, Inside Impeachment on TuneIn.
Hey, NFL fan, can't watch the game? Can't be there? No biggie. With your TuneIn Premium membership, you already have an all-access pass to every team and every game in the league. Amazing, right?
Steps up, floats it towards, at the goal line, it's intercepted!
Listen live as the action unfolds or on demand when you can. Anytime, anywhere, all season long.
Right side, it is caught. It is in for the right side for the touchdown to Keenan.
Search NFL today.
Broadcasting live from the Bloomberg Interactive Brokers Studio in New York. Bloomberg 1130 to Washington, D.C. Bloomberg 99.1 to Boston. Bloomberg 106.1 to San Francisco. Bloomberg 960 to the country. Sirius XM Channel 119 and around the globe. The Bloomberg Business app and BloombergRadio.com. This is Balance of Power with David Weston.
Coming up on Balance of Power, a federal court has now ruled that the president can't use Defense Department funds to build a southern wall. We're joined by my colleague June Grasso to talk about the legal basis for that ruling. But first, let's get a market check with Charlie Pellet.
Hi, thank you very much, David Weston. Happy Thursday. Trade, the big market story today. President Trump says the U.S. and China are very close to signing, quote, a big trade deal that is expected to see him reduce existing tariffs and delay ones due to take effect on Sunday. That has sent the S&P to a record. Sources say President Trump will be meeting with key trade advisors coming up 1 hour from now at the White House. Here's where we stand. S&P is up 31.59. up 18, a gain of 0.6%. Again, a record there. The Dow advancing 138 points, up 0.5%. NASDAQ is up 36, up 0.4, and the 10-year down 28.30. The yield now 1.89%. The U.S. Labor Department is out with its second inflation report of the week, and with that story, here's Bloomberg's Vinny Del Giudice.
Aside from the usual long-term hotspots, college tuition, real estate, and healthcare, inflation is in hibernation. The Producer Price Index held steady in November and rose a mere 1.1% on a year-over-year basis. Today's PPI data mirror Wednesday's Consumer Price Index, which showed muted gains. We get one more batch of inflation data Friday, the Import Price Index. Vinny Del Giudice, Bloomberg Radio.
The European Central Bank kept monetary stimulus unchanged at President Christine Lagarde's first policy meeting, shifting the focus to when she will announce her review of the institution's strategy for safeguarding the Eurozone economy. And Lebanon's caretaker Prime Minister Said Hariri says he discussed with the heads of the International Monetary Fund and the World Bank a possible plan to ease a deepening financial crisis. Gold down 0.5% at $14.67 the ounce. West Texas Intermediate crude up 1.2%, $59.44 a barrel. I'm Charlie Pellet. That's a Bloomberg Business Flash. Balance of Power with David Weston continues. And now, once again, here is David Weston.
Thank you so much, Charlie Pellet. A federal district court judge in El Paso has granted a nationwide injunction prohibiting President Trump from using funds appropriated for military construction to build a wall on the U.S. border with Mexico, a wall that President Trump says is critical for national security.
We need a physical barrier. Everything else is bells and whistles. I know more about drones than anybody. I know about every form of safety that you can have. And it's all good, but it's just very minor compared to the power of a wall.
To take us through the legal challenge to Mr. Trump's wall, we welcome now my colleague June Grasso and Leon Fresco, a partner at Holland & Knight. Mr. Fresco served as the Deputy Assistant Attorney General responsible for immigration litigation. So I should say, Mr. Fresco, this is not the only decision now. We also have one out in Oakland, California on similar grounds. Explain exactly who's bringing these lawsuits and why they have, as we say, standing.
Well, so there's two different entities bringing the two different lawsuits. You have in the Texas lawsuit, which is being done out of El Paso, you have the county of El Paso and you have an immigration advocacy group bringing the lawsuit, and they're saying they have standing because the county of El Paso was going to lose military construction funding from Fort Bliss and was going to suffer certain reputational harm, and the court viewed that that was enough standing both for bringing the case and for irreparable harm purposes, because you need to show irreparable harm if you're going to get injunction you're going to get an injunction in a lawsuit, and so they had that. And then in the other case in California, that's being brought by the Sierra Club and the ACLU and the state of California, and so those are the two different groups who are bringing both of those lawsuits. And the state of California was also going to lose military funding as well as a result of the decision by the president to divert military construction funding from the purposes it was slated for by the Congress to border wall construction instead.
So two different plaintiffs, two different bases for claims, but basically the same claim that you can't use the military construction money. There was an earlier ruling by a federal district court under a different provision about drug introduction, and that got actually stayed by the Supreme Court. Is it likely the Supreme Court will stay this one as well?
I think the question is in terms of the difference of what the two bases of funding are being used for. So I think there's a slightly better nexus in the statute that says that the military has this leeway to use money that it's been appropriated for counter drug activities. It's a little bit more tied into that, building a wall to stop counter drug, to engage in counter drug activities, as opposed to building a wall to protect the troops. And that's what this is for. And so the argument for these funds is you need the wall in order to protect the troops. And so that's why you're able to use military construction for it. That's a little bit more tenuous, though I think it's still likely that the court ends up ultimately enjoining this as well and then putting a stay and letting all of this get to the Supreme Court. Even though I think that's all going to end up happening the same way in both cases, I do think the legal argument is a little bit stronger
longer that the law money can be diverted for counter-drug activities as opposed to for protecting the military.
So, Leon, I think we all agree that this is going to end up at the Supreme Court, probably all these cases. In the last time the Supreme Court considered this, where they allowed the construction to go forward for a time, it was a divided court. Chief Justice John Roberts was the swing vote. Do you see a similar arrangement or a similar lineup when it goes to the court next?
Yes, correct. I think that unless the justices are going to try to gauge at some sort of vote trading or some kind of, this for that, maybe you give me this case, you give me the other. If this is just decided under the ordinary course, I think you will again see a 5-4 decision, and I think you will again see Justice Roberts be the swing vote to stay the injunction while the case is working its way up on the merits. And I think one of the issues that the court is getting more sensitive to is, maybe the complication is if just El Paso is bringing a lawsuit, well, why does the entire border wall need to be enjoined in a particular case? Or if California is bringing a lawsuit, well, why doesn't that just enjoin the wall in California, but not in other parts of Texas that haven't sued? And so there is where I see a lot of likelihood that you're going to see these injunctions at least limited, but I probably think they'll also be stayed as well.
So the Trump administration has been complaining about these nationwide injunctions. So you think the Supreme Court will actually take up that issue and rule on it?
Yeah, I think this might be a case where it's actually more appropriate than in other contexts, because one can say in these other cases involving immigration that, look, at the end, immigration is immigration, and it's about America vis-a-vis foreign countries and who can come and who can't, and so Texas shouldn't have a different law than California. That makes more sense in terms of a nationwide injunction. But here, if you're trying to say that your specific community is going to be irreparably harmed by the building of a wall, it's unclear why a national injunction would be needed to stop the irreparable harm to your specific community. And so this might be a more fruitful area of litigation for the government in the nationwide injunction context.
But that might go to remedy as a practical matter. It might limit the injunction to only a certain area. My basic question is, when it gets to the Supreme Court, as we all sort of expect it will, is this basically a clash between two different constitutional provisions? One saying the House gets to appropriate, the president can't appropriate, but the president's responsible for national security, because the president of the United States has declared a national emergency here. It's hard for the Supreme Court to disagree with the president over a national emergency.
Well, correct. That's one of the main arguments the government makes is, wait a second, court, you have made a mockery out of the decades of law that talk about deference to the executive when it comes to national security matters. And what you are saying is now the court gets to review when the president is saying that military construction is needed for national security purposes, and never has that happened before. And what the courts are saying is, yes, but that's because the Congress specifically considered this issue and took it off the table. And so it really is a unique battle in that, usually the military emergency comes up in some context that wasn't directly considered by the Congress. Some war happens or some change in the global picture happens. But here, the Congress considered it, the president capitulated, and now the funds shifted.
A legal hot potato. Okay, thank you so much to my colleague June Grasso and to Leon Fresco of Holland and Knight. Senator Elizabeth Warren has gotten a lot of attention, good and bad, for her proposed wealth tax. How much money would it really raise for social programs? The Wharton School has a new study out, and we're joined by one of the authors. That's next on Balance of Power. We are on Bloomberg Radio.
Why is delivering the best client experience a top priority at BNY Mellon's Pershing? Michelle Feinstein, Director of Client Engagement, explains.
Today's investors want a financial relationship that's on demand, customized, and leverages the latest digital technology. At BNY Mellon's Pershing, helping advisory firms and broker-dealers create great experiences for their clients is our priority. Through our integrated wealth experience, we give you a high-touch service, flexible technology choices, and expert insights, so you can deliver a highly personalized experience to your clients at every step, from onboarding to wealth planning, to performance analysis and more. And because we're part of BNY Mellon, you'll benefit from more than 230 years of strength and stability. At Pershing, we're personally invested in your success.
Visit Pershing.com to learn more about Pershing's integrated wealth experience. Pershing LLC and Pershing Advisor Solutions LLC are both members of FINRA and SIPC.
Have you wanted to speak a new language, but you thought it'd be too hard or take too much time? Then go to Babbel.com, download the app, and try it for free. In just 15 minutes a day, you'll be on your way to speaking a new language in just a few weeks. And right now, you can try Babbel for free. Babbel starts out teaching you words and phrases by matching them with pictures. You won't believe how easy the interactive program is. Soon the sentences get a little bigger, and before you know it, you're having simulated conversations voiced by native speakers. And because Babbel is crafted by language experts and uses the spaced repetition method, in just 10 to 15 minutes a day, you'll be speaking the language of your choice with real confidence. With Babbel, you can speak a language. Just go to Babbel.com and start your first lesson in the language of your choice for free. Download the Babbel app or go to Babbel.com and try it for free. That's Babbel.com.
When it comes to music, I've heard it all. Pink Floyd, Sean Paul, Slipknot. But in the Which Test Lab, hearing isn't enough. When we test headphones, we really listen. Not just to the music, but to the stuff that gets in the way. The traffic, the chatter, all that. Mind the gap. We simulate the loudest commute to find you the headphones that cancel out the noise. So you know we're only recommending the best.
Which tests harder, so you can buy smarter. Visit which.co.uk.
At Asda, packs of beer are just £12 each, including 24 bottles of Budweiser, 18 cans of Stella, or 12 bottles of Birra Moretti. Looks like you're hosting this year. Asda, let's make Christmas extra special. Selected stores and lines subject to availability. Budweiser 300ml, Stella 440ml, Moretti 330ml. Exclude Scotland Drinkaware.
Hey, NFL fan, can't watch the game? Can't be there? No biggie. With your TuneIn Premium membership, you already have an all-access pass to every team and every game in the league. Amazing, right?
Steps up, floats it towards, at the goal line, it's intercepted!
Listen live as the action unfolds or on demand when you can. Anytime, anywhere, all season long.
Right side, it is caught. It is in for the right side for the touchdown.
Search NFL today.
Hey, tune in listeners. Steve Kornacki here from NBC News. I want to tell you about a podcast I'm hosting called Article 2, Inside Impeachment. It's dedicated to bringing you the latest developments on the impeachment inquiry into President Trump. Every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, I talk to NBC News reporters who are closest to the story to break down what's new, what matters, and what it means for the 2020 election. Search and favorite Article 2, Inside Impeachment on TuneIn.
When you're not listening to your team, take it to the end zone, the rim, or the net. Keep up with the biggest moments in sports by following TuneIn on social media.
Block, Cook into the end zone for the touchdown.
From reminders of the live top games to tips of the best sports stations and podcasts.
Welcome to Undisputed. We are live from Los Angeles. I'm Jenny Taft here with Skip Bayless.
Follow and TuneIn on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to get the most out of TuneIn.
The swagger of a perfect dunk. The rush of a three made from all the way downtown. The adrenaline surge of great defense. Can you feel the goosebumps yet? There's nothing like live NBA and nothing like listening live on TuneIn. Giannis down the lane to the rim, throwing right corner three. Another TuneIn Premium brings you every minute of the NBA season, so you can be there when it matters most. Never miss the action as it happens. Hear the ball you love. Hear it live on TuneIn. Search NBA today to start listening.
Those up, dart toward the end zone. Caught, ball, touchdown.
NFL fans, hear every live game on TuneIn Premium.
Mahomes throwing off the back foot. He wants McCall. Hardman, he's got the catch at the 15. Jukes at the 10. 5, touchdown.
Today, hear the home and away call as the New York Jets visit the Baltimore Ravens at 8:20 p.m. Eastern.
Gets a block, 20, 25, 30. It's a foot race, 40.
At home or on the go, hear the home and away call of every NFL game this season on TuneIn Premium. Upgrade today.
Start hearing more of what you want.
Upgrade to TuneIn Premium and get over 45 commercial-free music stations, live commercial-free news, and every live NFL, MLB, NBA, and NHL game.
Visit TuneIn.com/premium to upgrade.
Don't want to miss a second of your NFL team's next matchup? Let TuneIn remind you. Just make sure notifications are enabled on your phone and search for your team profile on the TuneIn app. Then, find the game you want under events and tap Notify Me. We'll send you an alert as soon as live coverage begins.
Headlines and breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
From Bloomberg World Headquarters, I'm Charlie Pellet. Trade speculation sending U.S. stocks higher. Indeed, we've got President Trump scheduled to meet with advisors to talk about trade coming up just about 40 minutes from now. Just keep it locked into Bloomberg Radio for the latest of any trade developments. So stocks are pushing higher with the S&P up 15 now, a gain of 0.5%. The Dow up 117 points, up 0.4%. NASDAQ up 30. That is a gain of 0.4%. 10-year down 28.30 seconds, yield 1.88%. We've got gold down 0.4% now, 14.68 the ounce. And West Texas Intermediate crude up 1.1%, 59.42 a barrel. Recapping, stocks higher, S&P up 15, up 0.5. I'm Charlie Pellet. Balance of Power continues, and once again, here is David Weston.
Thank you so much, Charlie Pellet. Live from the Interactive Broker Studio, this is Balance of Power. I'm David Weston. Senator Elizabeth Warren has proposed a graduated tax on the wealthy that she says will raise $3.75 trillion over 10 years, and that it's only fair because it's a small percentage of their wealth, and it will do great good, she says.
If you make it big, I mean really big, I mean 0.1% big, pitch in 2 cents so everybody else gets a chance to make it in this country. 2 cents.
But Pennsylvania's Wharton School has a budget model showing that the Warren wealth tax won't reach nearly as much money as she says. And we welcome now Bloomberg's Laura Davison, who covers Congress and taxes for us in Washington and has a piece on the Bloomberg on this subject. So how much do they say she's going to come up short?
So they say she's going to come up about $1 trillion short. They estimate, somewhere between 2.3 to 2.7 trillion. And Warren, her campaign has said they're looking at more 3.75 trillion. So there's a big spread there of what she's sort of promising and what some of the experts who have looked at this are showing in their models.
What does she want to do with the money?
So she has a lot of plans for this. She, her universal child care plan, she's putting some of the money towards her Medicare for All plan, as well as some education things, erasing student debt, as well as funding free tuition.
So did she come up with this because she wanted to stick with her pledge not to increase taxes on the middle class because of Medicare for All? Because it seemed to roll out that way.
Yes, this is actually kind of a thread that's been constant throughout her campaign. The wealth tax that she has now is actually bigger than one she had when she first proposed it earlier this year. When she came out with her plan to pay for Medicare for All, she increased some of the rates in that tax. So it used to be if you over $1 billion in wealth, you paid a 3% tax. That got doubled to 6%. And this is really kind of one of the issues that some of the economists at Penn Wharton who looked at this. Why she would raise less money, basically because with that higher rate, you would see more people find ways, whether legally or illegally, to avoid this tax. And
what, if anything, does the Warren campaign say in response to the Wharton study?
They came out with a statement in direct opposition and said they don't basically trust this study. They say it's misleading and it didn't look at her exact plan and didn't account for all of the anti-evasion measures that she has in place. It also criticized the study, saying that it didn't account for the economic growth that would stem from how she's spending the money. They say things like, investing in universal child care would help grow the economy, and the study didn't do that.
Okay, many thanks to Bloomberg's Laura Davison reporting from Washington. And now we want to turn to one of the authors of the Wharton study. He's Professor Kent Smetters, who teaches business and economics at Wharton. Welcome, Professor. Good to have you with us. We just went over, in summary, your study. Tell us from your point of view the most important thing that you found.
As mentioned, it raises less money than the Warren campaign originally suggested, but it is still, a lot of money, and so there's a lot of different programs that could be funded with it. One of the main takeaways is that wealth tax doesn't just hit, billionaires and high-income people. It also means that those billionaires invest less in business, so wages in general can fall over time. We find wages on a pre-tax basis fall between between 1 to 2%. Of course, some of those same people could be helped by some of the transfer programs, pre-K education, things like that. But nonetheless, a wealth tax doesn't just hit billionaires.
So this is interesting, Professor, and I want to try to sort out, if we can, two things, as I understand it from your study. One is that, in fact, the economy will also suffer some harm from this wealth tax. It will not grow as fast. Wages will not be as high, as you just said. Another is tax avoidance/evasion. Take the first one, that is to say the effect on the economy. How do you project the possible effect on the economy? Why would the economy slow down? Why would wages not go up as fast?
Right. And it's simply because, how did billionaires make their money? They make their money investing in businesses. In the United States, the vast majority of wealth inequality at the high end is driven by entrepreneurship, risk-taking, and things like that. And so it's as a result of that tax, if that activity slows down a bit, that therefore, the employees that are employed by these investments are also going to take a bit of a hit as well.
Did you also take into account the possible positive effects on the economy of things like, for example, childcare? There will be more people in the workplace more often, and it might generate growth.
Right. And so what we did is we haven't been into the exact details of how the revenue has been spent. It's more broad categories that Laura mentioned, pre-K education, healthcare, and things like that. And when they give us, those more precise details, we can do entire policy packages. Lacking those, what we did is we spread out the money across a whole range of public spending programs that included things like pre-K, but also included things like physical capital, such as public infrastructure, roads, and so forth. And we really made two big assumptions or modeling decisions that was based on data. And the first one is that we assumed that these new investments would return 12 cents per dollar per year for every tax dollar invested. And so that's a pretty good return. That's not certainly not low. And also we assumed that the returns would happen fairly quickly, faster than what you get from, say, pre-K education. Now, the Warren campaign has said that you could also have secondary effects of maybe lower income mothers who are now freed up to join the workforce, and that's certainly correct. But in that case, you'd want to measure the difference between the work that's not currently being counted in GDP and the additional work. But then there are effects that go in the opposite direction of that, including risk-taking and so forth.
Briefly turn to the other side of it, the tax evasion/avoidance. That is the hole in the bucket, that they just won't get that as much money. How did you calculate that?
Yeah, and it's one reason why we spent months on this, because when we think about everybody talks about evasion, the more general concept is avoidance, and it's not just the illegal stuff; it's actually the legal things that can happen. And for example, you could set up if you're going to give away your $10 billion at death, you give away $10 billion across 10 different foundations, each of less than $1 billion. Those are separate companies. Very challenging to do that. It's very debatable sometimes what wealth is, especially when it's a private held company, things like that. So what we did is we did several things. One is we certainly looked at the experience of other countries, and then we also did a lot of interviews with tax experts in the United States, and we have our own expertise as well. And that's where we came up with kind of the amount of avoidance that we would see. What's really important here is that there's a fundamental trade-off. If you feel like you're going to get more revenue, that means the tax also has more bite and less economic activity.
Such thing as a free lunch. Okay, fascinating study. Thank you so much for sharing it with us. That's Wharton's Professor Kent Smenner. And we should say that Michael Bloomberg is also seeking the Democratic presidential nomination. Mr. Bloomberg is the founder and majority owner of Bloomberg LP, the parent company of Bloomberg News and Bloomberg Radio. And now we have Jason Kelly here to tell us about Bloomberg Business Week. What's up?
All right. Well, we're going to talk about trade because we talk about trade every day, David.
I should hope. I don't know what we'll talk about when it goes away.
I know. I'm sure we'll find some things. Also going to talk a little self-promotion here. We're going to talk about a story I have in Bloomberg Business Week. It's about Lululemon and the money behind it.
Now that's special. We're going to talk yoga pants.
Yoga pants.
Why we have to spend that much for yoga pants.
Exactly. Well, there's a lot of money in yoga pants.
Inquiring minds want to know. Okay, thank you so much. That's Jason Kelly going to be on with Carol Masser for Bloomberg Business Week. That does it for Balance of Power for today. I'm David Weston. Thank you so much for listening to Bloomberg Radio.
Christmas, a time for celebrating, unwrapping, and unwinding. Capture every moment with an epic iPhone 6S with a 12-megapixel camera. Now only $12.99 a month from Tesco Mobile, saving you £72. It's just one of the ways we're celebrating 100 years of great value. Go in store or search Tesco Mobile. Tesco Mobile. Every little helps.
Saving £2 per month over 36 months was £14.99. 36-month credit and rolling monthly usage agreements required. Subject to status. Terms apply. See tescomobile.com/terms.
Upgrade to TuneIn Premium and get over 45 commercial-free music stations.
You'll also get live commercial-free news,
Plus live play-by-play games from NFL, MLB, NBA, and NHL. Visit TuneIn.com/premium to upgrade.
Don't want to miss a second of your NFL team's next matchup? Let TuneIn remind you. Just make sure notifications are enabled on your phone and search for your team profile on the TuneIn app. Then, find the game you want under events and tap Notify Me. We'll send you an alert as soon as live coverage begins.
Hey, TuneIn listeners, Steve Kornacki here from NBC News. I want to tell you about a podcast I'm hosting called Article 2, Inside Impeachment. It's dedicated to bringing you the latest developments on the impeachment inquiry into President Trump. Every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, I talk to NBC News reporters who are closest to the story to break down what's new, what matters, and what it means for the 2020 election. Search and favorite Article 2, Inside Impeachment on TuneIn.
We can't make traffic move faster during rush hour. But we can help you catch up on the news with TuneIn. With live around-the-clock news from MSNBC.
In the UK, they're significantly worse. When the president gets up to the podium...
CNBC and Fox News Talk.
The Fox News poll sizing up the race for 2020 found that each of the 5 top Democrats...
You can use your stop and go for good by staying in touch with the world. Search news to hear what's happening now.
Far wing elevates, triple bucket.
The war of the crowd. The shot clock ticks down. Will the ball go in? The suspense is pure torture, but you wouldn't miss this for the world. And the replays just don't cut it.
The sideline, the man fleet for 3.
TuneIn Premium brings you every minute of the NBA season streaming live, so you can be there when it matters most. Hear it now, hear it live on TuneIn.
Fake in the lane, turnaround jumper from 8 feet is good on the
Search
right.
NBA today to start listening.
In case you didn't know, TuneIn lets you listen to the same radio stations you pick up on your home or car radio, except you can hear them from anywhere. If you want to find a station from somewhere else in the world, navigate to the By Location section under Browse. Keep exploring with TuneIn.
24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, on the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is Bloomberg Radio. This is Bloomberg Business Week.
I get that impression from Powell. I get the feeling he's a little bit more independent than what people might think he is.
Insight from the reporters and editors who bring you America's most trusted business magazine.
You want to go in the auto industry, I'm going to buy X and I'm going to short Y.
Plus global business, finance, and tech news as it happens.
Something happens in my brain when companies compare themselves to Amazon. Like a whole bunch of brain cells die.
What is it, that techno music? What is it that you're supposed to do when you're there?
Yeah. Bloomberg Business Week with Carol Masser and Jason Kelly on Bloomberg Radio.
Live from the Bloomberg Interactive Brokers studio. Welcome to Bloomberg Business Week. It is Thursday, finally, December 12th, 2019, my Friday. I'm Carol Masser along with my co-host Jason Kelly. And I have to say, I am so sad that I missed you and David Weston talking yoga pants.
Yeah, well, it happens. It happens. We're going to talk about that a little later on. I'm just warning everybody, somebody spiked your oatmeal, your coffee, or something this morning. So we don't know what's going to happen on this edition of Bloomberg Business Week, but tune in.
Get ready for Bizarro Thursday. All right, first up, let's get to a Bloomberg Business Flash and Charlie Pellet.
And I thank you very much. Slipping on my yoga pants, we have got Lululemon shares lower now by 4.5% after last night's earnings report. The Dow, the S&P, and NASDAQ all surging. President Trump meeting with trade advisors reportedly 30 minutes from now. Stocks higher amid a flurry of trade headlines that stoked optimism. The Trump administration will reach a partial trade deal with China ahead of Sunday's tariffs deadline. Here's where we stand. S&P up now by 17, up 0.5%. We've got the Dow up 136, up 0.5. NASDAQ up 34. That is a gain of 0.4%. We'll have a lot more on the markets coming up for you with Sarah Ponzak and Dave Wilson. Right now, the 10-year down 28.30, yield 1.88%. We've got gold down 0.5%, 14.68 the ounce. Crude oil, West Texas Intermediate up 1.1%, 59.39 a barrel. I'm Charlie Pellet. That's a Bloomberg Business Flash.
You had me at you in yoga pants.
Oh, there you go. That's an image, isn't it? Right.
Wow. All right.
Yeah. At least as long as they're not the old yoga pants they used to sell at Lululemon, and you know what I'm talking about there.
Let's not go there.
All good news that we're
Charlie
here
remembers everything
on radio. Well, coming up later on in the show, we're going to catch up with the chief security officer over at Huawei, that a company very much in the news.
Yeah, absolutely, and very relevant to the U.S.-China trade tensions that are going on. And we got to talk Lululemon. Charlie, of course, breaking down the share price. They reported earnings. More importantly, I think you've got a story in the magazine.
Well, in fact, I do. Joel Weber's going to be along. We're going to talk about that. It's all about the money behind Lululemon. One private equity investor invested twice, and they have made a ton. We'll tell you what they did.
They did really well. And coming up, we've got a Bloomberg exclusive, most read, among the most read on the Bloomberg, about Wall Street being hunted by futures cops. You definitely want to hear this story.
All right, let's set the Business Week agenda first. Dave Wilson here with us, stocks editor for Bloomberg and the author of the Chart and Stock of the Day, alongside Sarah Ponczak, cross-asset reporter for Bloomberg, both in our Bloomberg Interactive Brokers studio. Dave, I want to start with you. What's the one thing investors should be looking at today in the markets?
The U.S.-China story isn't just about trade today, so that's kind of an interesting development.
Dun, dun, dun. Meaning?
Macau. You know, the city where...
I saw this.
Absolutely. The city where... U.S. companies have put up casinos, and now you got this report out of Reuters talking about how Chinese President Xi Jinping plans to announce policies designed to diversify Macau's economy away from just gaming. They want to try and turn it into a financial hub.
This is kind of take this Hong Kong, right?
Yeah, there's that element, but think about it. If you've got, new industry coming to Macau, that means more people can go to the casinos.
I think about the conversation, Jason, we've had with Andy Brown this week about with everything that's going on in Hong Kong, that maybe there becomes a different financial capital in terms of Asia. He talked about Singapore, and we've talked about that a lot this week, but maybe Macau, maybe China has different plans.
And, you look at the stocks. Wynn Resorts, one of those companies, has the biggest gain in the S&P 500 right now. And in the top 5, Las Vegas Sands, another one. You've got MGM Resorts up a bit more than 1%. Melco Resorts, which trades here in the form of ADRs, and American Depository Receipts based in Hong Kong, up 6.6%.
So on the move.
All right, yes. Sarah Ponczak, champing at the bit here. What's happening with you? What's going on? What are you looking at?
Well, I will say, as Dave said, it might not all be about trade when it comes to the U.S. and China, but let's be real, it's a lot about trade when it comes to the U.S. and China.
Jason said to me in the newsroom, I am kind of looking forward to the day when we don't kick off our show talking about trade.
We haven't been for a few days, it seems, leading up to...
I don't know, we have been kind of kicking off our days almost every day.
I guess leading up to that Sunday, December 15th deadline, but we've had many, many headlines pass the tape today, and the tape has really been beholden to these headlines saying that U.S. negotiators, this is from Dow Jones, have offered to cut the existing tariff rates by up to 50% on $360 billion of Chinese imports. They might also not impose those December 15th tariffs. Markets really had a nice run off the back of that, now off the session highs. But volume, too, if you look at volume, for example, on the S&P 500 right now, 20% above the average at this time of day over the past 30 days. So people are trading. People are in the market today.
Well, think about we're getting through a lot of things this week, right? Whether it's the Fed meeting, the ECB, we've got an election over in the UK. There's a lot of stuff, and maybe if we get some resolution on trade, I just feel like there's a lot of stuff that's been brewing and weighing on investors' minds that maybe we're finally getting through it.
Absolutely. And Trump is expected to discuss China with his advisors come 2:30, so we'll see if any more headlines come out of that. But also it is approaching the end of the year, so we could also see investors, portfolio managers, advisors kind of shifting around allocations into year end.
All right, what are you looking at, Master?
Right, there's a story by Jenny Serrain, who has been so crazy busy this week. She's had all these great stories on the terminal over the last week or so. A story about Americans are projected to fall seriously behind on their credit card bills at the highest rate in a decade as banks push a record number of people to get plastic. So there's companies saying, banks out there sign up for, our credit cards and so on and so forth. But it talks about the share of credit card borrowers who are at least 90 days past due on their accounts probably tick up to a little bit over 2% next year. It would be the highest level since 2010.
Well, it's interesting, too, to pair that with one of our other stories this week around the Apple Card. And we learned a lot about sort of the different levels of cards and the elite level and retailers and merchants being a little grumpy about that. I mean, that's an area I have to think for both Sarah and Dave that they look at the credit card world as an economic indicator, but also from an equity perspective as well. Sarah?
Well, this is pretty surprising to me because when you hear people talk about delinquencies on credit cards, people continue to say, well, the consumer's strong. We haven't really seen high delinquencies.
It runs counter.
But if it's ticking higher, then that's something to keep an eye on.
Well, here, to be fair, that bad card debt still remains much lower than the level seen during the last recession. Okay. So this has to do with, I guess, people being 90 days late versus people seriously in delinquency. So I did want to put in that clarification.
Still 90 days, that could turn into something longer.
Right, exactly.
Right. So consumers, keep on spending.
Right.
Or not.
But pay off your debt.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's the trick. I mean, story of the last few years, once we got out of the housing bubble, how consumer debt was, as a rule, coming down.
Correct.
With some obvious exceptions like, student loan debt. But the idea that, credit cards may become an issue down the line, I mean, that certainly is something to watch for in terms of the consumer's ability to keep propping up the economy's current expansion.
Before we go away, we do want to get to the Bloomberg Markets Buy of the Day, but I wonder if you guys have a guess on this. The number, it's nice and kind of roundish. 15.
December 15th?
Oh, that's wrong.
That's the easiest one I can think of.
But that would be wrong. Dave Wilson?
I don't know. All I thought of was the Taylor Swift song by that name, so I'm not helping you much.
That took a turn. All right, Starbucks, also wrong. Starbucks is opening a store in China every 15 hours.
Oh, wow.
China has become the second largest market, operating more than 3,000 stores in the country. It has a 30,000 square foot Starbucks Reserve Roastery in Shanghai. It's the coffee chain's second of the concept to open. It's also double the size of the company's flagship location in Seattle.
Have you been in one of those roasteries? Is there one downtown?
I've been in the one downtown. It's pretty amazing.
It is pretty amazing.
I actually had a family in town this past weekend, and I brought them, being like, "Oh,
let's go to the roastery.
We have a fancy Starbucks. Take a look."
Yeah, the place is just massive compared with your typical Starbucks store. That's for sure.
Didn't they open one in Italy too, or something? And it was basically we can't believe you're doing this.
Right, exactly.
I think
really
it was just
going
one
to the
of
heart
the regular stores, though. Just the idea that they would do it in a country where coffee is practically a religion.
Exactly.
Are you kidding me?
Coffee and wine, for sure. All right. Thank you both so much. Dave Wilson, we'll see you in just a bit for your chart of the day. And Sarah Ponzak, cross-asset reporter. Always nice when you stop by.
All right, let's get to world and national news headlines. We welcome back Bob Moon. Hi.
We check the markets every 15 minutes, by the way, as the House Judiciary Committee considers articles of impeachment against President Trump. Republicans have been delaying the final votes with no holds barred amendments. Bloomberg's Irv Chapman has the latest live from Capitol Hill. Irv.
Bob, after a vote against their move to cancel the first article failed by a party line 23-17, Republican Matt Gaetz introduced still another amendment to include the proposed investigation of Ukraine's Burisma gas company, which put Hunter Biden on its board.
Their playbook is to do dirty stuff and then go and pay bribes and hire the people necessary to make those problems go away. Burisma is corrupt. Hunter Biden is corrupt. And that totally exculpates the president.
Democrats counter that the behavior of Joe Biden's and Donald Trump's sons could be introduced as an election issue, but is not relevant to President Trump's behavior in pressing Ukraine by suspending military aid to investigate the Bidens. Bob?
Irv, thank you. President Trump addressed a White House summit on child care and paid leave a day after the House of Representatives passed a provision providing all federal workers with paid parental leave for the first time in U.S. history.
The federal government will now give 12 weeks of paid family leave to all federal employees, something that nobody expected.
First daughter and senior presidential advisor Ivanka Trump has carried the torch on the family leave issue since her father took office. Authorities in New Zealand have launched a rescue operation at the site of an island volcano that erupted earlier this week. They're hoping to recover the bodies of 8 victims killed in the initial blast. I'm Bob Moon.
Financial leaders enjoy talking with Tom Keene and Jonathan Farrell.
What was it like having the giant darken the door every once in a while?
Experts appreciate it when what they have to say is understood.
Do you think that we might have seen a cyclical peak in the labour market?
It's the same reason we're recommending Bloomberg Surveillance to you.
Everything you thought would happen is happening.
Weekday mornings at 7 Eastern on Bloomberg Radio, the Bloomberg Business app, and BloombergRadio.com. Bloomberg, the world is listening.
Adopt US Kids presents What to Expect When You're Expecting a Teenager. Learning the lingo.
GOAT, G-O-A-T, acronym, stands for Greatest of All Time. As in, spaghetti sandwiches for dinner? They're my fave. Dad, you're the GOAT.
You don't have to speak teen to be a perfect parent. Thousands of teens in foster care will love you just the same. Visit adoptuskids.org. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt U.S. Kids, and the Ad Council.
Are you interested in a challenging and exciting career? One where you can be part of solving complex challenges across industries and geographies? Bloomberg's ever-expanding technology, data, news, and media services foster innovation, empower clients, and offer nearly limitless opportunities for career growth. Visit Bloomberg.com/careers today to view our current job opportunities. Bloomberg LP is an equal opportunity employer. The address once again is Bloomberg.com/careers.
Hi, I'm Danica Patrick. Watching my nieces grow, play, and learn is amazing, but not every child gets to be carefree. 1 in 6 kids in the U.S. are hungry. This breaks my heart, and it's something that Feeding America is working to change. Each year, the Feeding America network of food banks rescues billions of pounds of good food that would have gone to waste and gives it to families in need. To help, visit feedingamerica.org.
Brought to you by Feeding America and the Ad Council.
'Tis the season to be hunched over your laptop. Not on our watch. In real life, you can fill your senses and your baskets. Feel all the sights, sounds, lols, and OMGs. Wear laughing emojis on actual smiley faces. Batteries running low? Take the kids to Santa's Grotto. In real life, you can find just the right present using the most advanced search engine in the world. Your eyes. We hunt in real life. Brent Cross, London. Free parking for all sleighs and cars.
Ah, Christmas. A time for sharing gifts and laughter. And photos and videos. Make the most of it with a SIM-only deal packed with data from Tesco Mobile. Like a 10-gig SIM for just £13 a month. It's just one of the ways we're celebrating 100 years of great value. Go in store or search Tesco Mobile today. Tesco Mobile. Every little helps.
Ends 29th of December. 12-month contract and unlocked 4G-enabled phone required. Terms apply. See tescomobile.com/terms.
Ladies and gentlemen, behold the world's most fantastical, sensational number. 31 million. This Friday's Euro Millions jackpot is a massive £31 million.
Euro Millions, celebrating 25 years of the National Lottery. Your numbers make amazing happen. Estimated jackpot. Rules and procedures apply. Players must be 16 or over.
I'm Ben. I used to be homeless. I'd sleep in the train station, stuff newspapers in my clothes to keep warm. Sometimes I thought I wouldn't wake up. No one should have to live like this. The Crisis Christmas Centre was a safe place. We got hot meals, health checks and support. In the new year, they helped me find work and a home. This Christmas, you can reserve a place for someone who's homeless for just £28.87. Go to crisis.org.uk today and help someone like me take their first steps out of homelessness. Thank you.
I wish me a Merry Christmas. I wish me a Merry Christmas. I wish me a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
Don't forget yourself this Christmas. Now you can choose from a range of extras like Amazon Music Unlimited, Audible, Amazon Prime Video and Caffeine on us. Search O2 Christmas Extras.
On selected tariffs for 3 or 6 months, not available to existing Amazon Video and Music or Audible customers. Terms apply.
Ah, Christmas. A time for celebrating, unwrapping and unwinding. Capture every moment with an epic iPhone 6S with a 12-megapixel camera. Now only $12.99 a month from Tesco Mobile, saving you £72. It's just one of the ways we're celebrating 100 years of great value. Go in store or search Tesco Mobile. Tesco Mobile. Every little helps.
Saving £2 per month over 36 months was £14.99. 36-month credit and rolling monthly usage agreements required. Subject to status. Terms apply. See tescomobile.com/terms.
Want TuneIn to remind you when the big NFL game is about to get underway? Be sure notifications are allowed on your phone and search NFL on the TuneIn app. Find the game you want to hear under events and tap Notify Me. We'll let you know exactly when it's time to listen in for kickoff.
When you're not listening to your team, take it to the end zone, the rim, or the net. Keep up with the biggest moments in sports by following TuneIn on social media.
Block, Cook into the end zone for the touchdown.
From reminders of the live top games to tips of the best sports stations and podcasts.
Welcome to Undisputed. We are live from Los Angeles. I'm Jenny Taft here with Skip Bayless.
Follow at TuneIn on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to get the most out of TuneIn.
To LeBron, slam dunk.
The NBA is on TuneIn Premium. Each week, TuneIn picks an NBA game you just can't miss. The Miami Heat are taking their talents to Texas to take on the second-year phenom, Luka Doncic, and the Dallas Mavericks.
Pulls back, trying to make it 11-2.
This Saturday, the Miami Heat are at the Dallas Mavericks. Tip-off is at 8:30 p.m. Eastern. Search NBA on TuneIn to follow your favorite NBA team today.
Markets, headlines, and breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
From Bloomberg World Headquarters, I'm Charlie Pellet. The Dow, the S&P, and NASDAQ all advancing amid a flurry of trade headlines that stoke optimism. The Trump administration will be reaching a partial trade deal with China ahead of Sunday's tariff deadline. Just about 13 minutes from now, President Trump will be meeting with his trade advisors. The S&P up now by 15, a gain of 0.5%. The Dow up 143, also up 0.5%. NASDAQ higher by 27, that is a gain of 0.3%. 10-year down 27.30 seconds, the yield 1.88%. We've got gold down $6 the ounce, down 0.4%, 14.68, and West Texas Intermediate crude rallying 1% today, up 58 cents a barrel to 59.34. Recapping stocks higher on trade optimism. S&P up 15, a gain of 0.5%. I'm Charlie Pellet. That's a Bloomberg Business Flash.
Charlie, thanks a lot. You're listening to Bloomberg Business Week right here on Bloomberg Radio.
So we do want to talk a little bit about global security concerns. We have the perfect guest to do that with. Andy Purdy is Chief Security Officer at Huawei Technologies USA. He is joining us in our Bloomberg Interactive Brokers studio in New York. Of course, Huawei, very familiar to our audience. I feel like amid the U.S.-China trade tensions, we cannot forget that the Commerce Department blacklisted Huawei back in the spring to stop American businesses from selling components to the company. The White House, for a while, has accused the company of being a threat to America's national security. So let's kind of roll it all together. Andy, good to have you here with us because I feel like the more conversations we have on these types of issues, the smarter we all get. The recent bans that have come out from the administration, what has that done to you guys as a company and in terms of interacting with American businesses?
Well, there's certainly been an impact on Huawei. We've got nearly 300 American companies that want to sell to us, that supply up to 25 or 30% of all of our global components. So we've had to move to what they call Plan B, something that IBM had recommended we start, and we did start some time ago. So we have had to find alternatives to those, and right now we're able to ship our 5G technology with no American components. So we're not entirely sure of the impact on us, but we do know that over 40,000 American jobs hang in the balance for no good reason. So we hope that these issues can be put aside. This effort in an effort to hurt China, we're end up hurting America. We're cutting off our nose to spite our face.
And what sort of progress, if any, are you making in Washington to get that message across? Are they listening, or are you sort of shouting into the wilderness here?
Well, we're not making any progress. I mean, the fact is, and I think the existence of the U.S. trade talks, the geopolitical situation, although everybody says that we're not connected to it, the government won't even talk to us. They won't talk to us about the kinds of things that allow Nokia and Ericsson to do business in the United States, despite their deep ties to China. So we hope that if there is some kind of a trade deal, that maybe then the government will talk to us about these mechanisms. And Telefonica, the German company, just came out and decided to do a 5G contract with us, despite the pressure of the U.S. on Germany. So we can address real cybersecurity cybersecurity risk, and we'd love to collaborate with the U.S. government.
What's the future, though, I do think, because we have tons of conversation. The magazine just this week has a story about Chinese Americans who are being called, and especially those who work on government projects and have high security clearances, where they are under heightened scrutiny, and sometimes wrongly so. And so I do wonder, like, what is the future in a world where we talk about a bifurcation where it's kind of the U.S. versus China? So what does that mean for a company like you guys?
And the Verizon CEO recently said that we want to avoid a 5G Cold War. Brad Smith came out and said it just doesn't make any sense. We see very important things happening in Europe. For example, in Germany with the Telefonica announcement, but the government is working hard. The European Union is working hard to try to come up with objective and transparent bases for knowing which products are worthy of trust. Because the bad guys out there have great skills, and we have to use very good technologies to address the risk that comes through all products.
So, Andy, I want to ask you, because your background, you worked in the White House. I mean, you understand the other side of the table in many ways. How surprised were you that all this went down, essentially knowing how the sausage is made on the other side?
Well, there have been some long-standing concern, as you know, and although the tariffs help obscure these fundamental agreement among the Republicans and Democrats, the concern about theft of intellectual property, the concerns about forced technology transfer, the threat that the U.S. sees from China as China has grown economically and militarily, these are things that cut across the board. And legitimate concerns. Well, let's put it this way. Our government, the American government, has to make sure that we address the risk to this country. We've got to learn lessons like from the 75 years ago D-Day. In cyberspace, we have to be ready, much more ready than we were when the Germans and the Nazis swarmed over Europe. We have to be ready to address real risk. And we think it can be done, and it has to be done with standards and conformance programs for the operators, as well as testing, independent testing for the equipment. We'd love to participate in those conversations.
But it is interesting, too, though, that if there is a division, a technology division in the world going forward, we talk about it a lot, about 5G, maybe there's going to be two standards, or, you do wonder what does that mean for global security concerns?
Well,
potentially.
What it means is a real threat to competition, and competition is critically important. It's important for security, it's important for resilience, it's important for innovation. We need to make sure that we have competition, and when you look at the equipment vendors, there's not enough competition. I hope Nokia is strong enough to survive, frankly. I hope that they're strong enough to do the R&D that they need to.
With your expertise in understanding where you are currently, and then as Jason mentioned, having spent some time, along the Beltway, and I just do wonder, so what is the answer? Because we do know, in terms of our relationship with the Chinese, that there has been problems with intellectual property, and there has been a lot of technology transfer, or if you're starting up a business, you've got to do it along with a Chinese company. It's very clear that the Chinese, have a mission to be very dominant. And I don't have a problem with that, because I feel like that's capitalism at play. But because of the past, how do we know what we're dealing with as a country, the United States?
Well, I'm glad I had the opportunity to participate in discussions at the United Nations here in New York last week with governments and private companies. It's a combination of, we need norms for governments. We need benchmarks that we can hold governments accountable. We can have mechanisms to create incentives and consequences if governments violate the rules. But also, you need companies. You need independent standards. You need independent testing so we can address the real risks. It's the combination, the shared responsibility that's going to help us.
Just 30 seconds. What would be a great incentive for the Chinese to really make sure that in terms of the government conformity that it happens? Just quickly.
Well, I think the global community holding them and other countries accountable, the World Trade Organization, to standards on the theft of intellectual property, on forced technology transfer. We have to have visibility and then make clear when a country, whoever it is violating those norms.
But it's interesting, in a week where we know the WTO is at risk.
Is weakened, to say the least. Andy Purdy, we hope you'll come back. I feel like we were only able to scratch the surface of a really important topic. Chief Security Officer at Huawei Technologies, here with us in our Bloomberg Interactive Brokers studio. Coming up, we're going to check in with our friends at Johns Hopkins about the latest in medicine.
Yes, we are. And then we're going to talk a little bit about ETFs, certainly swelling into a $4 trillion juggernaut. What is next for the industry?
This is a Bloomberg Market Minute. Stocks remain modestly higher amid new hopes for a partial U.S.-China trade deal. The Dow Jones Industrial Average is up 151, the S&P 500 up 17, The Nasdaq Composite is up 36. U.S. businesses owed more money than did households in the third quarter. It's the first time that's happened since 1991. The Fed says non-financial companies took on debt at a 5.7% annual rate, while household borrowing slowed to 3.3%. Boeing will pay Southwest Airlines for damages due to the grounding of its 737 MAX. Terms are confidential, but the airline says it'll add $125 million to an employee profit-sharing pool. Chevron and French oil company Total will invest $5.7 billion in a Gulf of Mexico oil project. The 75,000 barrels per day project off the coast of Louisiana is expected to start producing in 2024. Larry Kofsky, Bloomberg Radio.
Hey, it's me, your cell phone. We need to talk about something serious. I know you love me, I know you like using me wherever you are, but I feel like this isn't working out when you're driving. I know you may think that it's possible to focus both on me and the road, but I just don't feel the same way. I think we should spend time away from each other when you're driving. It's for the best.
Visit StopTextStopWrecks.org. A message brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, Project Yellow Light, and the Ad Council.
Are you interested in a challenging and exciting career? One where you can be part of solving complex challenges across industries and geographies. Bloomberg's ever-expanding technology, data, news, and media services foster innovation, empower clients, and offer nearly limitless opportunities for career growth. Visit Bloomberg.com/careers today to view our current job opportunities. Bloomberg LP is an equal opportunity employer. The address once again is Bloomberg.com/careers.
This year, make Christmas shopping a pleasure. Come to Bicester Village, with over 160 beautiful boutiques set in a fairy tale Cotswolds Christmas garden, glittering by day and magically illuminated by night. After a day's hard work finding the perfect gifts, reward yourself with festive menus and cocktails at Farm Shop Restaurant and Cafe by Soho House & Co. or a delicious dinner at Cafe Wolseley. Bicester Village, the perfect place for Christmas shopping.
Dear Dad, Merry Christmas. Thank you for always doing everything you could to make this time of year special for us. No one has a Christmas jumper collection quite like yours. Your festive spirit is...
Gingerbread latte with 2 shots and nutmeg whipped cream for Joe.
I hope it snows. I know how you love a white Christmas. All my love, Joe. Heartfelt can happen anywhere with moonpig.com. Download the app and get 20% off when you buy a card and gift this Christmas. Use code Heartfelt20. Exclusions apply.
Heading for the net. Scores! On the goal line, Marchand scores!
Hockey fans, the 2019-20 NHL season is here.
And tucks it home!
And with this team, it's really fun to be a part of a team like that.
You can hear the action live on TuneIn Premium. From regular season action to the All-Star Game and through the Stanley Cup in June. Hear the home and away call for every game, for every team live. At home or on the go, never miss a game with the NHL on TuneIn Premium.
Upgrade today.
Introducing a new podcast, ESPN Daily. When you want to go beyond your feed, when you want to get inside the score, when you want to get behind the highlight, there's ESPN Daily. Go deeper into the stories of the moment. Get the exclusive access and insider perspective that only ESPN can give you. ESPN Daily, hosted by me, Mina Kimes. Listen now to ESPN Daily on TuneIn.
Hey, TuneIn listeners, Steve Kornacki here from NBC News. I want to tell you about a podcast I'm hosting called Article 2, Inside Impeachment. It's dedicated to bringing you the latest developments on the impeachment inquiry into President Trump. Every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, I talk to NBC News reporters who are closest to the story to break down what's new, what matters, and what it means for the 2020 election. Search and favorite Article 2, Inside Impeachment on TuneIn.
Start hearing more of what you want. Upgrade to TuneIn Premium and get over 45 commercial-free music stations, live commercial-free news, and every live NFL, MLB, NBA, and NHL game. Visit TuneIn.com/premium to upgrade.
Hey, NFL fan, can't watch the game? Can't be there? No biggie. With your TuneIn Premium membership, you already have an all-access pass to every team and every game in the league. Amazing, right?
Steps up, floats it towards at the goal line. It's intercepted.
Listen live as the action unfolds or on demand when you can. Anytime, anywhere, all season long.
Right side, it is caught. It is in for the right side for the touchdown.
Search NFL today.
Goes up the dart toward the end zone. Caught ball, touchdown.
NFL fans, hear every live game on TuneIn Premium.
Mahomes throwing off the back foot. He wants McCall. Hardman, he's got the catch at the 15. Jukes at the 10. 5. Touchdown.
Today, hear the home and away call as the New York Jets visit the Baltimore Ravens at 8:20 p.m. Eastern.
Gets a block, 20, 25, 30. It's a foot race, 40.
At home or on the go, hear the home and away call of every NFL game this season on TuneIn Premium. Upgrade today.
Broadcasting live from the Bloomberg Interactive Brokers Studio in New York. Bloomberg 1130 to Washington, D.C. Bloomberg 99.1 to Boston. Bloomberg 106.1 to San Francisco. Bloomberg 960 to the country. Sirius XM Channel 119 and around the globe. The Bloomberg Business app and BloombergRadio.com. This is Bloomberg Business Week.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was pointing to you. It's flu season.
It is flu season. I was thinking about a conversation we were having with our producer on the TV side, who's got a little one who's sick. You've got a little one. You've got a teenager, right? I mean, it's just...
Everybody's down.
Everyone. So we're going to talk about the flu season because it's serious, guys, and there's also a big cost as well.
We're going to check in with our friends down at Johns Hopkins about that. But first, let's check in with our friend Charlie Pellet. He's got an update on the trade. Hey,
thank you very much. A lot going on right now. This headline on the Bloomberg Professional Service. Major story. The United States has reached a deal in principle with China. It is awaiting President Trump's sign-off again. U.S. reaching a trade deal in principle with China. This, according to people familiar with the China trade talks. Negotiators do have terms of a phase one deal for President Trump. Big jump. You run the GIP function on any of the major indexes. S&P, for example, big jump there. Looking at the S&P 500 index, surging 27 points right now at 3168. That is a jump there of 0.9%, pushing back close to session highs. We've got the Dow up 245, up 0.9%. NASDAQ up 54, higher by 0.6%. Let me repeat one more time that headline from the Bloomberg. U.S. reaching a deal in principle with China. The 10-year down by 1 2/32 now. The yield 1.91%. We've got gold down 0.6%, 14.66 the ounce. West Texas Intermediate crude up 1%, 59.33 a barrel. I'm Charlie Pellet. That is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
All right, Charlie, thank you so much. Do want to reiterate what Charlie just said, because as Jason and I kidded at the top of the show, it feels like every day we're talking about trade at the top of our broadcast, and that's because investors have been watching it very closely. Charlie, breaking that headline, U.S. reaches deal in principle with China, awaiting a sign-off by the president. We do notice a spike up in the equity trades. We're up about 26 points on the S&P 500, up 0.8%. Same percentage gain for the Dow. It is now up 237 points, and the NASDAQ is up 0.6 point. That works out to a percentage point, I should say, up 50, almost 55 points here. So definitely a spike here.
Well, and we may hear, I would be surprised if we don't hear pretty shortly from the president. He's in some meetings at the White House now, so we'll bring you all of those headlines as they come. This is Bloomberg. And meanwhile, it's flu season.
It is. So much going on. And yes, you got to deal with the flu season.
Absolutely. So let's understand what's underneath all of that. Dr. Andy Pekash, he joins us. He is from the Johns Hopkins Bloomberg School of Public Health. And of course, the Bloomberg School of Public Health is supported by Mike Bloomberg, the founder of Bloomberg LP. I should get that one right. And Bloomberg Philanthropies. He joins us on the phone. Dr. Pekash does, from Panama City Beach, Florida. Well, Dr. Pekash, thank you so much for joining us. Tell us about the flu season we're in, because as Carol said, it is that time of year. Everybody, it feels like, has someone in their house who's down with something.
Yeah, so thanks for having me on. This is a flu season that's starting to ramp up. We're a little bit concerned about this flu season because cases are much higher now than we would normally expect to see at this time of year. And these cases of flu are being caused by a strain of flu that we normally don't see until the end of the flu season. So those two things are making us think that we should be really careful about this flu season and really start paying attention to people who are feeling sick and trying to minimize contact with them.
And it's interesting, Dr. Prakash, I feel like we all talk about the flu and kind of just blow it off, but it can be very, very serious, certainly for a younger population, for an older population. But in general, it's not until I feel like those headlines start coming about the amount of people who are in a hospital do we oh, yeah, this is serious.
Absolutely. I think, we hear about flu every year. Some of the symptoms of flu are rather generic. So oftentimes you maybe have a bad cold and you say, well, I had the flu. And I think all of that contributes to us maybe not thinking that flu is as serious a disease as it really is. 2 years ago was a great example. Very serious flu season. In the U.S. alone, 61,000 deaths could be attributed to influenza and over 800,000 hospitalizations. The economic costs, it can be up to $11 billion, that's billion with a B, dollars of medical costs in a severe flu season, and that's not even counting the economic costs of people who lose wages and productivity because they're home and sick.
And so, Dr. Prakash, remind us, because we all sort of fall back and say, all right, I got my flu shot. I did get my flu shot, by the way. I know you got your flu shot.
I did.
You're very good about that. And everyone in my family did. So how safe should we feel having taken that precaution?
Yeah, so the flu shot is it's not the best vaccine in the world, but it provides about 60% protection in good years. So you've done the first thing, which is the most effective thing that you can do, and that's get your flu shot. It's been proven over and over again that the flu shot, even in years where it's not highly effective, can prevent flu infections, and it can infect those serious flu infections. And, just because you're healthy and young and you think you can handle the flu, that doesn't mean you shouldn't take the flu vaccine. The groups that are most susceptible to severe flu, the very young, the very old, all of them are also very difficult to vaccinate. So the more healthy people get the vaccine, the more we limit the spread of flu, the more sort of protection we can give to those other vulnerable populations.
All right, going to leave it on that note. Dr. Andrew Prakash, thank you so much. Johns Hopkins Bloomberg School of Public Health, supported, of course, by Michael R. Bloomberg, founder of Bloomberg LP and Bloomberg Philanthropies.
All right, well, let's get back to the big breaking news crossing the terminal right now. U.S. reaching a deal in principle with China. It's a trade deal, folks, awaiting President Trump's sign-off. Well, there is one man that we turn to when all of this is going down, and that is Sean Donnan. He joins us from the nation's capital. All right, Sean, bring us up to date. What's the breakthrough?
Well, what we have heard is that negotiators on both sides have reached this agreement in principle. That agreement will lay out terms under which China will ramp up its purchases of agricultural goods. It also will see the U.S. Roll back some of the existing tariffs. We're hearing that the rate on those tariffs could fall as much as half.
Wow, this is a big deal.
Yeah.
So let's break it down a little bit. That agricultural piece, talk to us about that, because that has been central to President Trump's demands, correct?
Absolutely. I mean, this is really about politics. Donald Trump has a huge constituency in farm states. He wants to shore those up before 2020. And because of politics, they were one of the main targets for China when it retaliated against the U.S. When President Trump first imposed tariffs in March 2018. That's the reason those soybeans have become that kind of emblem of the trade wars. So we expect China to start buying a lot more pork, a lot more soybeans, and we'll go from there.
It's interesting, and I think about politically how there's been a lot of conversations about getting smarter, better, more current trade deals. Do we get that with this? Because I think about, as an American, I'm thinking about, okay, where are we going? Is it about ag products, or is it about more higher tech things that we need to be concerned about?
And there's the rub. What this does is it puts a big pause on the trade wars, and it kicks the can down the road on a lot of big issues. There will be, we're told, some language in here on intellectual property. That's positive in terms of some of those bigger issues that the Trump administration and the U.S., in fact, has long had with China. But what's not going to be in there are big efforts to address things like industrial subsidies. Those are the low-interest loans and cheap electricity and things like that China has used to kind of fuel its industrial might. And those things will have to come in later phases, if those later phases come. So there's a kind of short-term victory to be had here. And we really do need to stress that this, we're being told, still needs to be signed off on by Donald Trump, but that the negotiators at least have gotten to this deal, and that is being presented to Donald Trump this afternoon for a sign-off, that we could get an announcement very soon after that. But Donald Trump still needs to sign off on this, although this morning in a tweet he said we're very close to a deal. And for the first time in a while, we heard him say that was something that the U.S. wanted as well. Normally he's pointed to China. So some signs that he's warmed up to this deal, but it's being brought to him as we speak to get that final sign-off.
All right, just checking on the market reaction to this breaking news. The S&P now up about 0.7%, so off of its spike and off the highs of the day. We should point out stocks did surge, as Sean and our colleagues point out in their reporting early in the day, off of those presidential tweets.
Right?
You know, Sean, I'm glad you brought up sort of the different elements of this, because literally just a few minutes ago, we were talking to the chief security officer of Huawei. That's a company that has been really caught up in this trade war, in this tension, in this conflict, I should say, between these two countries. How likely is it that we soon do move on to phase 2 and beyond? Or does this administration feel like it's going to be content to, sort of sit on phase 1 for a while?
Yeah, and it's not just Huawei. It's Huawei's American suppliers who have been essentially banned from doing business with Huawei, which is a huge telecommunications company. Look, this doesn't resolve that. It doesn't resolve all sorts of other issues that the U.S. and China have, whether it's over Hong Kong or over Xinjiang, that area in far western China, where China is accused of human rights abuses of Muslim minorities that have led to sanctions here in the United States. It doesn't get into whole other conversations that we're having about Chinese investment in the U.S. or other national security threats that people here in Washington see from Chinese technology and all sorts of things. And that's the point here a little bit. We need to remember phase 1, it's good. It kind of parks the trade war for a while if President Trump signs off this afternoon. But at the same time, it doesn't address the fact that we have had this major deterioration over the past 18 months in the broader relationship.
Well, that's what I'm thinking about, because I think about when you've got a good friendship or a good relationship with somebody and then something goes horribly wrong. It's never the same. And I do wonder about what this relationship is, Sean, going forward. What's the level of trust really between the two? I mean, I understand with trade, there's numbers and there's ways to check on what's going on, but there's so many other things where there's no transparency.
Yeah, I'm not sure if this is the U.S. and China sending each other flowers or holding hands for the first time. But it is, you're absolutely right. That erosion of trust is really important. And that's why people talk about a new Cold War between the U.S. and China. That's why these two big economies are looking at each other and wondering if they can ever have the same relationship again. And, that's the question that's not going to be answered today or tomorrow, and probably not next year.
So, Sean, you mentioned when we first started talking something that is well known to all of us around this table, which is there's a political element to this for sure. This is happening at, safe to say, a complicated time in Washington, where we're looking at all our screens here, and while we're sort of split between trade and impeachment hearings, there's also something else going on Capitol Hill, presumably more squarely in your world, which is USMCA, that trade deal among the U.S. Canada, and Mexico. Help us square sort of the politics of trade and the politics of politics, I guess.
Yeah, look, I mean, Trump's big economic promise in 2016 was to remake America's relationships with the world. Trade was a big component of that. He promised to renegotiate NAFTA. He's not only renegotiated it, he's renamed it the USMCA. So he gets the claim of victory there to a certain extent. And with China and his tariffs, we were just talking about the relationship and the erosion of trust there and how it's a changed relationship and so on. He will get to claim at least having done some of that. And if there's a deal and that has diminished some of the tensions that are there and the things that have been kind of casting a shadow over the U.S. and global economies, and that's a positive potentially that he can take into the economy, although it's an kind of unfinished positive. But yeah, Donald Trump has rewritten the rules when it comes to trade and politics in America. We had something I never thought I'd see this week, and that is Donald Trump and Richard Trumka from the AFL-CIO, a longtime skeptic of trade deals, and longtime opponent of trade deals, even under President Obama, a big-time Democratic base guy as well. But we had those two men agreeing on a new version of NAFTA, which both of those men have excoriated for decades.
Right.
And that's a pretty remarkable moment. So, it's been a big week in terms of impeachment and the broader politics for Donald Trump. But if he gets this deal with China and agrees to the final sign-off here, he's got two big victories on trade that he can claim this week.
Yeah, the split screen is just incredible, Carol.
It is pretty incredible, the visuals right on this. Hey, we're talking with Sean Donnan. He follows trade globalization for us here at Bloomberg News. He's joining us from our bureau in Washington. The news at this hour, we have seen some equity market reaction to the upside on this. U.S. negotiators have reached the terms of a phase one trade deal with China that now awaits President Trump's approval. This is according to people briefed on the plans. I have to say, I am an optimist, Sean, on so many different things. But do I feel like Charlie Brown when the football is, pulled out from under me once again? Because we've seen this back and forth so many times with this administration, this president specifically. Something different this time around?
Feels like something different. I think this is something that the president has wanted for some weeks now. He announced the kind of bones of this, or the architecture of this, October 11th in the Oval Office. And since then, we've had the kind of back and forth between the U.S. and China in terms of trying to get this down on paper. And it looks like they've actually gotten there. That is, Lucy's going to let you kick this football. But you know what? There's going to be other footballs down the line, and I'm not so sure about those.
And one logistical question that you may have answered, Sean, and I apologize if you have, which is, the president can sign this and then it just goes into effect, or is this something that does require congressional approval?
Look, this does not require congressional approval. The next question we're going to turn to is, who will sign this? Will Trump meet with Xi Jinping? Some people are talking about Davos in January as a possible signing date. Will Robert Lighthizer, the U.S. Trade Representative, hop on a plane to Beijing, or will someone from China come here? Those are all the questions we're going to have to answer after we get an announcement. And you know what? In the trade world, nothing's ever finished until there's a signature there and the thing is put away in the Library of Congress somewhere. We saw that with the USMCA. Yeah. Donald Trump and his leaders of U.S. of Mexico and Canada signed that over a year ago, and it took this long to get it through Congress. But at least with this deal with China, it's not going to have to go through Congress, so it's a more immediate thing. There are going to be some, we're going to get lawyers on both sides doing what's called legal scrub before a signing, but that's all the kind of end stage stuff that you get in a normal trade deal.
Well, and as you certainly appreciate more than anyone, given all the lead up to this, the president's going to want a big photo op, presumably. One would imagine that the idea of coming together with President Xi.
Really? You think, Jason? What do you think, Sean?
I think the guy's a little shy, isn't he? I mean, he's kind of, no, look, I think you're right. I mean, I think that those are all the questions that are going to come into play. I mean, if you go back a few weeks, this originally was going to be signed at the middle of November down in Chile when Xi Jinping and Donald Trump were at this APEC summit down there. That summit got canceled because of unrest down in Chile, and that's part of the reason we've had this delay, where it's, you need a hard deadline. Yeah. Well, this time around, the hard deadline is these tariffs that are going to go into effect on Sunday unless we get this deal or the president delays them. So, that's why where we are.
Sean, somebody have their Wheaties this week, because, man, NAFTA, the new NAFTA, USMCA, as we like to call it, USMCA, and then maybe a U.S.-China trade deal, a lot coming out of the administration and the president this week.
Yeah, this is all stuff that's been building for a while. And, it's Robert Lighthizer who's at the middle of all of this, is a man who is in his early 70s and has a remarkable amount of stamina, clearly, because he's been working both of these files very hard in the last few weeks.
All right, well, we're going to leave it there. So grateful to you. You're breaking news. You're coming on our air to help us break it down. Sean Donnan, I don't think he does either. And very good on Twitter. You got to follow him on Twitter. Highly amusing and highly informative.
Baking too on the weekends.
And baking on the weekends.
A Renaissance man.
Big baseball fan. He does it all. He does it all. Sean Donnan, thank you so much. Let's get over to Charlie Pellet. He's got some market reaction to trade and the other business headlines. Hey, Charlie.
Hi, thank you very much, Jason Kelly. Stocks higher across the board. Let's recap and reset here. U.S. negotiators have reached the terms of a Phase 1 trade deal with China that now awaits President Trump's approval. This, according to people briefed on the plans. The Dow, the S&P, and NASDAQ all advancing. S&P up 18, a gain of 0.6%. We've got the Dow up 181 points, up 0.7. NASDAQ up 34, higher by 0.4. Your 10-year down 30 seconds. The yield there 1.89%. I'm Charlie Pellet, and that is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
All right, Charlie Pellet, thank you so much. You're listening to Bloomberg Business Week. Carol Massar along with Jason Kelly, and this is Bloomberg Radio.
So amid trade tensions and amid everything else that's going on in the world, there are some significant shifts happening in the investing world. I feel like we've been talking about that for a good part of the year. When we look back at 2019, it feels like ESG sort of having a moment. So let's start there with Jordan Ferris, Managing Director and Head of ETF Product Development at Nuveen, based out in Chicago, here with us in New York City today. So am I right? Is ESG having a moment here?
Jason, I think you are right. I think ESG is having a moment. This has been one of the most popular talking points within the ETF industry this year in 2019, and even some in 2018. We brought our first products to market in 2016. They're about to hit their 3-year track record, and the performance has actually been quite good. And investors and advisors are starting to understand that ESG doesn't necessarily mean outperformance. It can be something that doesn't necessarily mean underperformance. It can drive outperformance and mitigate risk.
I got to tell you though, there's ESG and then there's ESG. So what are the parameters that qualify
existential.
ESG to Nuveen? Yeah.
Sure. So it can vary by firm. So we always encourage advisors to take a look at the underlying methodology. But if we take a look at some of the acronyms that are in the investment space right now. So ESG stands for environmental, social, and governance. Right. And these are a series of factors that we can rank companies and choose the ones that are outperforming their peers.
Do they have to outperform on all of them?
They do not. We would use an aggregate score, and they just have to outperform at that aggregate level.
How do you identify social, though? We talk about this. We've had a lot of conversations, in fact, just in the last couple of weeks, about how do you really quantify, qualify, define kind of the social factors.
Sure. So
governance is pretty easy.
Governance is easy.
I feel like environmental is getting easier as well.
Social's tricky.
Yeah.
It can be. So this can be something like health and safety procedures that you would have on your factory floor. Let's say you're a car manufacturer. Whichever firm has better safety procedures on their floor would likely have a lower incidence of injury, which can be expensive for firms to deal with. They have to hire somebody to come in and replace that worker, which can be expensive, and that worker may not be as productive as the person that was injured. So these are things that are good for their business model. If they are doing a good job taking care of their workers, that would be something that's in the S or the social category.
And so how much does something like what the Business Roundtable said earlier this year around it can't just be for shareholders, we've got to be more holistic in terms of what we're delivering for the broader universe of stakeholders? I know that's something, a term that some people use. Is that underneath more of the popularity? What's sort of bringing it more into the conversation in your estimation?
I think there are two things. I think there is this societal change where people are valuing environmental, social, and governance concerns more than they used to. And they're able to integrate those as a philosophy through their investments now, as opposed to doing that elsewhere in their life, whether they're donating their time or their money to a certain cause. Now you can incorporate that as a philosophy in your investments. Also, with the immediacy of news, we're able to see what's going on with companies in a much quicker, in a much more transparent way. We do a responsible investing survey every year at Nuveen, and one of the key points from this year's responsible investing survey looked at millennials. Millennials are twice as likely to call their advisor if they see a company in the news for negative reasons, and they're twice as likely to sell that position if they see a company in the news for negative reasons.
So how quickly are you guys willing to sell a company? And I'm just looking at I think it's the ESG, I think it's a large cap ETF that you guys have. I mean, Procter & Gamble, Walt Disney, Verizon, Intel, Merck, Coca-Cola, PepsiCo, Citigroup, Cisco. I mean, this reads like, kind of an S&P 500 index fund in many ways. So I'm just curious, one of these companies does something egregious. Do you drop them right away?
So within our equity products, we have a quarterly rebalance. So if something happened and the company had a major controversy and they were included in the portfolio, they'd be removed at that quarterly rebalance. However,
what if they say they're working on it?
So companies can become re-eligible if they demonstrate policies and procedures that would help them eliminate that risk.
But you drop them until you see change in the policies?
Until their score goes back up above our thresholds. Interestingly enough, companies that tend to experience major controversies probably have ESG scores that would not pass our threshold anyway. So we have been able, within our suite of products, to avoid a lot of companies that have made major headlines for negative reasons.
Wow, really interesting. All right, well, thanks for taking us in that side. Really interesting. Jordan Ferris, Managing Director, Head of ETF Product Development over at Nuveen, based in Chicago, here with us in New York City. Well, keeping an eye on those trade headlines, stocks continue to move up, holding some of those gains that they picked up on that Bloomberg headline. S&P up about 0.7%, Carol.
Yep, definitely, though, off our highs of it and definitely off our highs of the day. Still got about an hour left in today's trading session. Coming up, though, we shift from equities to the bond market. So we'll get an update on that. Also take a look at economic news and thinking one day after that Fed meeting. Carol Massar, Jason Kelly, you're listening to Bloomberg Business Week.
Christmas, a time for celebrating, unwrapping, and unwinding. Capture every moment with an epic iPhone 6S with a 12-megapixel camera, now only $12.99 a month from Tesco Mobile, saving you £72. It's just one of the ways we're celebrating 100 years of great value. Go in store or search Tesco Mobile. Tesco Mobile, every little helps.
Saving £2 per month over 36 months was £14.99. 36-month credit and rolling monthly usage agreements required. Subject to status. Terms apply. See tescomobile.com/terms.
Hey, NFL fan, can't watch the game? Can't be there? No biggie. With your TuneIn Premium membership, you already have an all-access pass to every team and every game in the league. Amazing, right?
Steps up, floats it towards, at the goal line, it's intercepted!
Listen live as the action unfolds or on demand when you can. Anytime, anywhere, all season long.
Right side, it is caught. It is in for the right side for the touchdown to Keenan.
Search NFL today.
The swagger of a perfect dunk. The rush of a three made from all the way downtown. The adrenaline surge of great defense. Can you feel the goosebumps yet? There's nothing like live NBA and nothing like listening live on TuneIn.
Giannis down the lane of the rim, throwing right corner three. Another one.
TuneIn Premium brings you every minute of the NBA season so you can be there when it matters most. Never miss the action as it happens. Hear the ball you love. Hear it live on TuneIn. Search NBA today to start listening.
Introducing a new podcast, ESPN Daily. When you want to go beyond your feed, when you want to get inside the score, when you want to get behind the highlight, there's ESPN Daily. Go deeper into the stories of the moment. Get the exclusive access and insider perspective that only ESPN can give you. ESPN Daily, hosted by me, Mina Kimes. Listen now to ESPN Daily on TuneIn.
The puck drops. 12 players face off to win. The suspense is pure torture, but you wouldn't miss this for the world. TuneIn brings you every minute of the NHL season. Listen live to hockey when it matters most on TuneIn.
In the stock market and in life, everything can change from 1 minute to the next. Be the first to hear the latest money news and market trends with CNBC on TuneIn. Wherever your day takes you, listen to CNBC's full slate of programming, including shows like Fast Money, Squawk Box, and Mad Money with Jim Cramer. And when the next big business story breaks, CNBC lets you know with live updates and commentary. At the office, at home, or on the go. Search CNBC on TuneIn to listen.
Today at Bloomberg.com, on the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is Bloomberg Radio.
From Bloomberg World Headquarters, I'm Charlie Pellet. We move into the final hour of trading on this Thursday. We have got the Dow, the S&P, and NASDAQ all advancing, stocks higher after Bloomberg reported that the Trump administration reached a deal in principle with China on trade. Treasury yields spiking above 1.9%. Stocks higher right now with the S&P up 22, a gain of 0.7%. The Dow up 203 points, also up 0.7%. And NASDAQ higher by 45, up by 0.5%. So trade the big story. And Bloomberg's Sean Donnan is following it for us here at Bloomberg News. He was our guest right here on Bloomberg Business Week.
Well, what we have heard is that negotiators on both sides have reached this agreement in principle. That agreement will lay out terms under which China will ramp up its purchases of agricultural goods. It also will see the U.S. Roll back some of the existing tariffs. We're hearing that the rate on those tariffs could fall as much as half.
The relentless trade drama continuing to dominate sentiment on U.S. equity markets, whipsawing equities ahead of Sunday's tariff deadline. Again, S&P up 23, higher by 0.8%. The 10-year right now yielding 1.90%. Gold down 0.4%, $14.68 the ounce. West Texas Intermediate crude up 1%, $59.33 a barrel. European Central Bank this morning kept monetary stimulus unchanged at President Christine Lagarde's first policy meeting, shifting the focus to when she'll be announcing her review of the institution's strategy for safeguarding the Eurozone economy. And lots of economic news today. The government's producer price index holding steady in November. Core PPI, which excludes food and energy, fell 0.2%, second drop in 3 months. So again, recapping here, stocks surging on trade optimism. S&P up 22, up 0.7%. Dow Industrials up 198, also up 0.7. NASDAQ up 45, up 0.5%. I'm Charlie Pellet, and that is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
You're listening to Bloomberg Business Week with Carol Masser and Jason Kelly on Bloomberg Radio.
All right, let's do a little Business Week economics. The team is here. Kathleen Hayes.
No. We've done the Fed meeting. We're done with economics for the week. Just kidding.
I was like, oh my gosh, am I doing the wrong thing? I heard the music. God. It's 3:00. What's happening?
Headline, Fed to adjust the limit for some daily overnight repo operations.
Hey. Timing is everything.
Powell and Company not done yet.
Exactly. Well, see, Jay Powell heard you, and he said, no, there is economic news still to come.
There you go.
All right, Kathleen Hayes is here, Global Economics and Policy Editor. Man, Carol Masser scared me. For Bloomberg, Andrew Husby is U.S. economist for Bloomberg Economics. They're both here. It's a lively Friday.
Yes.
A lot of news flow.
Thursday.
Oh my gosh.
It's Asia Friday, Jason.
It's your Friday.
It's Carol's Friday.
It's Carol and Asia Friday.
Yeah, right.
Kathleen Friday. All right. So on your Friday, which is actually Thursday, Kathleen, what are you looking at?
The bond market. I love this. It's so exciting. Whoa. Look at the sell-off. The 10-year note is at 1.904. It's a soared, as our Vivian Lucien says, 11 basis points to 1.9. Biggest increase since September. It got as high, actually, yield as 1.92. The 30-year bond has sold off about 2.25 points. The yield's at 2.330. So, if there's going to be a trade deal, oh my God. In fact, the reaction in the bond market is dramatic, much more so than the stock market so far. Maybe the stock market's waiting for the details. But what's really interesting is the news came out in time for people to see this big, jump in yield, drop in price, and they just scooped up 30-year bonds today like crazy. Elizabeth Stanton, Bloomberg News, describes it as a bond burner, $16 billion offering to a yield more than 2 basis points lower than where it was at the trading at the bidding deadline, attracted so much interest from investors that primary dealers only had to suck up 50.5% of this offering. That's a record low. So it's just funny. I think when you speak of timing and why they did it now, I don't think Donald Trump or anybody was thinking about the U.S. government bond market or the 30-year bond auction today. But boy, oh boy, in fact, the drop in prices, quote, either brought buy-side money in off the sidelines or created a big need to cover, Jeffrey strategist Tom Simon said in a note. Anyway, this is just kind of putting the Fed and anything they said or did yesterday back in the corner for a while. Yeah, right. So interesting.
All right. So, Andrew Husby, come on in, our U.S. economist at Bloomberg Economics.
So I think what it tells you is that the market is looking for a little bit firmer growth next year, a little bit more inflation. I'd be hesitant to totally disregard everything the Fed said yesterday because I think it's key to anchor.
They're on hold for 2020.
They're on hold for 2020.
Done.
We'll see you after the election is our line there. So
and that's an important point. Carl Rigodana on air with us saying that by spring the Fed's going to pretty much determine what they're doing for the year, and they're not going to change because it's an election year.
Right. What we see is what we see is that a Fed at rest tends to remain at rest ahead of an election, and a Fed in motion tends to remain in motion. They don't want to rock the boat in the lead up to that sort of an event. So I think it's key though to remember what you're seeing from the Fed is greater acceptance that they don't have to move for other reasons too now, including a labor market which may have more slack than we expect.
Right. Interesting.
It was interesting, and it's been the steady realization over time as we were in the 6% range for the unemployment rate. They were thinking, okay, how far into the fives can we go? We got in the fives, then we get in the fours. Now we're in the threes, and we see very little in the way of inflation. So I think that's why the bond market reacted today. I think the longer term structural issues that the U.S. economies around the globe are looking at aren't really changing at the moment.
Well, and one more redhead just crossing that you'll want to see as well, Kathleen, is the Fed planning $365 billion of term repo operations to provide funding through January.
Why are we getting these headlines?
Because this is their announcement. It's a big deal to the bond market. They're waiting to see what the Fed's going to do. But
I like that Kathleen went from excited to rather cynical that.
Listen. Jay Powell is like, so we're doing this stuff. Well, if we have to, we'll make some changes. We can buy coupons, maybe a long-term repo facility. But I'm really not looking at that. He didn't say I'm not looking at that much now.
Yeah.
But that's basically what he said. The Fed's not worried about this because they feel they can do what they used to do. When I started covering the Fed, you do customer RPs, you do reverse RPs, you just manage liquidity in the system. It's a little more work, but the Fed did it brilliantly.
Are we talking too much about this?
I don't know. I think we have to because it matters a lot to the bond market. I just want to say one more thing about rate moves next year. I would posit that the risk now, if the trade deal goes through and if we see some positive response in the economy, the consensus that is so clear from the meeting in December, right, going into, okay, only 4 people see any moves. 13 out of 17 say we're going to end the year where we are now. If the economy looks a little stronger, things start. You're going to hear the hawks are going to be speaking louder. I think that would be the risk to the bond market, that maybe if things really get better, the Fed won't be as quiescent as we think now.
Sure, there's obviously a chance that we get a little bit perkier readings on growth. The issue though is it's going to be really tough. They might be able to jawbone the market, but I think an actual move we'll have to wait till after the election because we might be trading one set of uncertainty right now, the trade conflict, for another set, which will be lead up to the election. Which candidates have which plans, and they're going to I think hold off on.
I do wonder though if inflation picks up or if growth starts to stall, does the Fed have to do something?
Well, I think that's what I was going to say. That I think that that's a safe bet. Is that inflation with low unemployment, it goes nowhere. It stays below 2%, and ultimately that's why Jay Powell and the middle ground will push back about needing to hike. If you've got inflation below 2%, how do you begin to justify any kind of rate move, election or no election? I think if they had to do something, they would, but they'd rather not. That's true.
Right. All right. We'll see. Feisty today. I love it. You guys came in hot. was great.
Must have been in everyone's oatmeal, Jason Kelly.
Somebody spiked everybody's oatmeal today, certainly.
Well, I guess I should have my oatmeal. I didn't get nothing spiked, kids. Sorry.
That you know
Sorry
about.
For you.
All right, Kathleen Hayes, Global Economics and Policy Editor for Bloomberg. Catch her on Daybreak Asia tonight at 6 p.m. Wall Street time on Bloomberg Radio and TV. And Andrew Hespy, U.S. economist for Bloomberg Economics. You're pointing at me, Carol Massar. Why?
Coming up, there's this story in the magazine. I don't know. Crazy story about Lululemon, done by this writer, bureau chief guy, co-host guy. Oh, Jason Kelly.
Oh, yeah. I did write that. Yeah, we are going to get to that. Joel Werber's going to be along.
Well,
talk a little bit about Lululemon. I get my sleep. That's the secret.
All right, let's get back to world and national news headlines. For that, let's turn over to Bob Moon. Hi, Bob.
Hi, Carol. Recapping the story we've been telling you about, U.S. negotiators have reached the terms of a Phase 1 trade deal with China that now awaits President Trump's approval. According to people briefed on the plans, trade advisors are said to be meeting with Trump at this hour to discuss the deal. Another long day for the House Judiciary Committee as the Democratic majority stands in the way of Republican amendments aimed at disrupting 2 articles of impeachment. Bloomberg's Irv Chapman is live with us on Capitol Hill. Irv.
Bob, every amendment brings another opportunity to restate the basic issues. Ranking Republican Doug Collins insisted there are no valid grounds for impeachment.
The case on abuse of power, there is none. When you can't factually add it up, then we've lowered the standard to where anything can be brought in.
Democrat David Cicilline.
It is about the President of the United States using the power of his office to smear a political opponent, to drag a foreign power into our elections, and leverage hundreds of millions of dollars of taxpayer money to accomplish that objective.
Republicans called for investigating Hunter Biden. Democrats said President Trump cared about the Bidens only after polls indicated Joe Biden could defeat him. Bob?
Irv, thank you. After President Trump attacked Time Magazine's Person of the Year, climate activist Greta Thunberg calling the choice of the 16-year-old student from Sweden ridiculous and telling her to chill, she has quietly responded. Trump tweeted in his put-down, quote, Greta must work on her anger management problem, then go to a good old-fashioned movie with a friend. This week she's been sounding the alarm at the UN, and Trump tweeted derisively, chill, Greta, chill. She changed her Twitter profile to read currently chilling and watching a good old-fashioned movie with a friend. I'm Bob Moon.
1858. The first transatlantic cable brings news of Europe.
We have the US tariffs on European goods. Would you be standing ready to buy UK domestic stocks now?
It works for 3 weeks. Bloomberg Daybreak Europe.
You are expecting an end of uncertainty.
It works every time.
What are you looking for in the event of a deal? There are a confluence of factors.
Weekdays at 1 a.m. Eastern on Bloomberg Radio, the Bloomberg Business app, and BloombergRadio.com. Bloomberg, the world is listening.
I'm a 40-year-old man that walked in there to get his high school diploma. It was very hard for me, but Miss Araceli, she gave me direction.
At age 47, Marco finished his high school diploma.
50% of getting your high school diploma is walking through those doors. The other 50% is doing the work.
No one gets a diploma alone. If you're thinking of finishing your high school diploma, you have help. Find free adult education classes near you at finishyourdiploma.org. That's finishyourdiploma.org. Brought to you by the Dollar General Literacy Foundation and the Ad Council.
Are you interested in a challenging and exciting career? One where you can be part of solving complex challenges across industries and geographies. Bloomberg's ever-expanding technology, data, news, and media services foster innovation, empower clients, and offer nearly limitless opportunities for career growth. Visit Bloomberg.com/careers today to view our current job opportunities. Bloomberg LP is an equal opportunity employer. The address once again is Bloomberg.com/careers.
You're fierce. You take care of business and don't hold back. Taking care of your health shouldn't be any different. You know when something's off. Don't ignore symptoms like fatigue, joint pain, and rashes. Listen to your body. It could be lupus. We're here to help you take control. Learn how at BeFierceTakeControl.org. Brought to you by the Lupus Foundation of America and the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention.
In-depth
From ESPN and the award-winning producers of The Sterling Affairs comes the latest season of 30 for 30 podcasts. 4 brand new stories of espionage.
He wanted this team to be the Barcelona of women's basketball.
Resilience.
I started to scream. I tried to get away.
Corruption.
It's the culture of win at all costs.
And rebirth.
How will we ever rebuild it?
30 for 30 Podcasts, Season 6. Listen and favorite 30 for 30 podcasts on TuneIn.
Hey, NFL fan, can't watch the game? Can't be there? No biggie. With your TuneIn Premium membership, you already have an all-access pass to every team and every game in the league. Amazing, right?
Steps up, floats it towards, at the goal line, it's intercepted!
Listen live as the action unfolds or on demand when you can. Anytime, anywhere, all season long.
Right side, it is caught, it is in for the right side for the touchdown to Keenan.
Search NFL today.
When you're not listening to your team, take it to the end zone, the rim, or the net. Keep up with the biggest moments in sports by following TuneIn on social media.
Block, Cook into the end zone for the touchdown.
From reminders of the live top games to tips of the best sports stations and podcasts.
Welcome to Undisputed. We are live from Los Angeles. I'm Jenny Taft here with Skip Bayless.
Follow at TuneIn on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to get the most out of TuneIn.
Those up, dart toward the end zone. Caught, ball, touchdown.
NFL fans, hear every live game on TuneIn Premium.
Mahomes throwing off the back foot. He wants McCall. Hardman, he's got the catch at the 15. Shoots at the 10. 5, touchdown.
Today, hear the home and away call as the New York Jets visit the Baltimore Ravens at 8:20 p.m. Eastern.
It's a block, 20, 25, 30. It's a foot race, 40.
At
50.
home or on the go, hear the home and away call of every NFL game this season on TuneIn Premium. Upgrade today.
Introducing a new podcast, ESPN Daily. When you want to go beyond your feed, when you want to get inside the score, when you want to get behind the highlight, there's ESPN Daily. Go deeper into the stories of the moment. Get the exclusive access and insider perspective that only ESPN can give you. ESPN Daily, hosted by me, Mina Kimes. Listen and favorite ESPN Daily on TuneIn.
The puck drops. 12 players face off to win. The suspense is pure torture, but you wouldn't miss this for the world. TuneIn brings you every minute of the NHL season. Listen live to hockey when it matters most on TuneIn.
Want to know a quick, easy way to see if your favorite podcasts have a new episode available? Just go to the home screen on your TuneIn app and see the latest editions under the Your New Episode section. Happy listening.
Some days life can get in the way of catching up on the news that moves your world. TuneIn is here to help. With live 24/7 coverage from CNN wherever you go on the TuneIn app, you can always find a slice of your schedule, however long, to check in on the biggest stories of the day.
Hell hath no fury. The president's counselor went on a rampage on a taped phone call with Washington Examiner reporter.
Search CNN on TuneIn to get the live news when it matters most.
The swagger of a perfect dunk, the rush of a three made from all the way downtown, the adrenaline surge of great defense. Can you feel the goosebumps yet? There's nothing like live NBA and nothing like listening live on TuneIn.
Giannis down the lane to the rim, throwing right corner three, another one.
TuneIn Premium brings you every minute of the NBA season, so you can be there when it matters most. Never miss the action as it happens. Hear the ball you love. Hear it live on TuneIn. Search NBA today to start listening.
Headlines and breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
From Bloomberg World Headquarters, I'm Charlie Pellet. This developing story from the Bloomberg Professional Service. McDonald's is free from liability for franchise labor violations. McDonald's shares up now by 0.9%. Now let's head right over to the First Word breaking news desk for today's afternoon call. Here's Bill Maloney.
And good afternoon, Charlie. U.S. stocks are volatile today on trade-driven headlines. Dow's currently up 195 points, is off the highs of over 300. S&Ps are up 23, while NASDAQ climbs by 46. The U.S. 10-year yield at 1.89%. Gold is down 6. Small caps gain 11. And 8 of the main 11 S&P sectors are trading higher, led by gains in energy and the financials. Real estate, utilities, and telecom led to the downside. Nasdaq biotechs rise 24. Transports jump 127. Semis are up 2.3%. And the VIX is down by 5%. Leaders to the upside on the Dow, Cisco, JP Morgan, and Dow Inc., while Boeing fell 1.6% and led to the downside. After earnings, Lululemon fell 4.2%. And in other news, Facebook plunged intraday after the FTC weighed seeking an injunction over how Facebook's apps interact. And wrapping things up, some of the names reporting after the bell tonight include Adobe, Broadcom, Costco, and Oracle. Live from the First Breaking News Desk, I'm Bill Maloney. Charlie?
All right, we thank you very much, Bill. And to hear live breaking news over your Bloomberg, type Squawk, SQUAWK, on your terminal. I'm Charlie Pellet. That's a Bloomberg Business Flash.
All right, Charlie, thank you very much. Listening to Bloomberg Business Week. It is Thursday. I'm Carol Master along with Jason Kelly right here on Bloomberg Radio.
All right, well, it was private, kind of, and then it was very, very public. We're talking about Lululemon, and this is a story that's really never been told. I can say that with some confidence because I decided to tell it myself.
Wait, Jason, wait, Joe. So Jason comes to you with this story. You're like, really, Jason?
Yeah, I'm like, why don't you talk to a few other people and make sure that
this story a little bit.
We're talking about Lululemon.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously in the news today, they came out with earnings, and what's interesting is this is a company, Joel, that's at a point where only by even meeting expectations, it has set such high expectations that the stock actually goes down. But when you look at it across the year, the stock has almost doubled.
Yeah, it's kind of incredible, right? And so what Jason's pitch was, Carol, was, hey, there's actually a backstory here. You know, before this thing took off, they actually went through a turbulent period. And some private equity money got involved here and actually sort of like came to their rescue a little bit.
Right.
What's that story, Jason?
All right. So the story is basically, so back in 2005, Advent, a private equity firm not that many people know. It's not a brand name like Blackstone, KKR, or Carlyle. They invested in this little Vancouver company with a funny name, as David Mussafer said to me, the managing partner at Advent. They invest in 2005. It goes public in 2007, 2008. They sell all their shares by 2009. They make 8 times their money. Job well done. Fast forward 2013, they've got this see-through pants problem, failing the, as one of our headlines put it at the time, the bend over test, real headline. And also their founder gets crossways, Chip Wilson, with the board. There's some management tension, and Advent comes back in and buys half of Wilson's stake, public shares, comes back in, and in the intervening time fixes the company, and the market cap has quintupled.
Yeah, the stock's up. I mean, the stock has just doubled almost this year alone.
Right.
What I think is interesting, and
so just for context, today is a blip when you look at it.
Right.
I'm looking at it for a year right now, even and year to date even, and it's like, that's like insignificant.
It's up 83% year to date. But I think what's interesting is in a year where politicians, specifically folks like Elizabeth Warren, are questioning, the role of private equity in our markets, like here's an example of private equity coming in and potentially, helping
helping investors.
Firm.
There's a lot of people who made a lot of money off of it.
Public shareholders.
And in many ways, they expanded a company in this case and went in and, Joel and I have talked a lot over the past couple of years about sort of what is the private equity playbook. What I find so interesting about this, too, is this was the private equity playbook in public in many ways. Lululemon was still reporting quarter to quarter.
And couldn't be scrutinized more after the bend over incident.
Exactly. And, one of the people that I talked to for the story, incidentally, and this is, sort of better to be lucky than smart in some ways with timing, the COO who was largely responsible for this guy named Stuart Hazelden, he was just named this week to go essentially fix another company away, the luggage company, which has come under a whole bit of other scrutiny, which ties into another story in the magazine by Rebecca Greenfield.
It all comes together.
It's almost like we had a plan. It's almost like there's this editor of the magazine who has this vision.
I know nothing. But what I will say about, actually, I want to ask you again about this, the COO thing. What did he do? Because a lot of this, to see this kind of returns, I mean, you got to be like laying groundwork, and you look at Apple and like before Tim Cook was CEO, he was effectively doing the same thing, and that's where it got to see growth. So what did he do at Lululemon? And then B, what do you think he's going to do at Away?
Well, it's a great question. And what the management team essentially did, and this is where private equity really did, I think, bring some expertise, is the supply chain was broken. And basically that had shrunk gross margins by 600 basis points. So 6 percentage points. You think about how much profit was being left on the table. They put out a plan that said, all right, let's make up half of that. Let's get 300 basis points back. They ended up getting 800, so 8 percentage points.
Big change.
And so that's the profit engine. The other thing they did was they said, we need to sell more to men, we need to be global, and we need to figure out e-commerce.
And those, I mean, you think about that, right? Opening up e-commerce, you're going to have maximum appeal. But then also the men question I thought was a really interesting one. I mean, this was a brand that resonated first and foremost with women.
Right.
So how do they talk about reaching men instead?
I mean, it's basically a different kind of marketing.
Other than the amazing shorts that I own.
Right, exactly. I mean, the other thing they're doing is they're opening different sorts of experiential stores. They've got a membership program that they are experimenting with now. So they've got to keep ahead. You know, this guy, David Musafir, the managing partner at Advent, I spent a lot of time with him on this story. I've gotten to know him pretty well over the years. And his background is really interesting. He's from Alabama. His dad was in the retail business. So he understands the disruptions in many ways. And anyway, you should check out the story. It was fun to work on.
Just to dwell on today, though, for a second, like what is the market reacting to, in your opinion, here?
I think the market is reacting to a company that has consistently been beating big, and it was not quite as enthusiastic. I think you do have a CEO in Calvin McDonald who's a little bit more conservative at this point, so it'll be interesting to see what happens after the turn of the year.
Well, and when you have a stock that's pretty much doubled, you know, investors' expectations are high, so it's not just about meeting expectations, it's about blowing it out, and I don't think we necessarily got that. All right, you're listening to Bloomberg Business Week. Joel Weber, thank you so much, editor of Bloomberg Business Week. Check out my co-host story in the magazine and also
the full
the
conversation,
interviews.
yeah.
Yes, our Bloomberg Extra podcast and also on our weekend show. You're listening to Bloomberg Radio.
This is a Bloomberg Market Minute. It's a deal. U.S. and Chinese negotiators reportedly have reached an agreement in principle on a Phase 1 trade deal with China. Sources tell Bloomberg it now awaits the approval of President Trump. A formal announcement could come this afternoon. News of the potential breakthrough has sent stocks back toward their highs for the day. The Dow Jones Industrial Average is up 199. The S&P 500 up 24. The Nasdaq Composite is up 51. The Federal Trade Commission is said to be considering going after Facebook. The Wall Street Journal reports the agency is concerned about how Facebook's products interact. It may seek an injunction blocking Facebook from further integrating its apps. Southwest Airlines reportedly is considering a new delay for the return of its 737 MAX jets to commercial service. That return is currently set for March, but CEO Gary Kelly says that date is likely to slide unless the FAA ungrounds the jet this month. Larry Kofsky, Bloomberg Radio.
Hi, I'm your host, Smokey Colbert, filling in for Smokey because after 75 years of...
Only you can prevent wildfires.
Turns out there's much more to say. Nearly 90% of wildfires are caused by us humans being careless, dumping our used barbecue coals willy-nilly. Guess the song was wrong. We did start the fire. That's why I respect Mother Nature and her trees, whether coniferous or new car scented. Brought to you by the U.S. Forest Service, your state forester, and the Ad Council.
Are you interested in a challenging and exciting career? One where you can be part of solving complex challenges across industries and geographies? Bloomberg's ever-expanding technology, data, news, and media services foster innovation, empower clients, and offer nearly limitless opportunities for career growth. Visit Bloomberg.com/careers today to view our current job opportunities. Bloomberg LP is an equal opportunity employer. The address once again is Bloomberg.com/careers. In-depth.
Some days life can get in the way of catching up on the news that moves your world. TuneIn is here to help. With live 24/7 coverage from CNN wherever you go on the TuneIn app, you can always find a slice of your schedule, however long, to check in on the biggest stories of the day.
Hell hath no fury. The president's counselor went on a rampage on a taped phone call with Washington Examiner reporter.
Search CNN on TuneIn to get the live news when it matters most.
Those up, dart toward the end zone. Caught, ball, touchdown.
NFL fans, hear every live game on TuneIn Premium.
Mahomes throwing off the back foot. He wants McCall. Hardman, he's got the catch at the 15. Jukes at the 10. 5, touchdown.
today. Hear the home and away call as the New York Jets visit the Baltimore Ravens at 8:20 p.m. Eastern.
It's a block 20, 25, 30. It's a foot race 40.
At home or on the go, hear the home and away call of every NFL game this season on TuneIn Premium. Upgrade today. Hey, NFL fan, can't watch the game? Can't be there? No biggie. With your TuneIn Premium membership, you already have an all-access pass to every team and every game in the league. Amazing, right?
Steps up, floats it towards at the goal line. It's intercepted.
Listen live as the action unfolds or on demand when you can. Anytime, anywhere, all season long.
Right side, it is caught. It is in for the right side for the touchdown.
Search NFL today.
Want to hear about the latest and greatest things to listen to on TuneIn? For reminders of the biggest live sports games, debates, and breaking news stories, follow @TuneIn on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to stay connected with the audio that matters to you.
The puck drops. 12 players face off to win. The suspense is pure torture, but you wouldn't miss this for the world. TuneIn brings you every minute of the NHL season. Listen live to hockey when it matters most on TuneIn.
Far wing, elevates, triple bucket.
The roar of the crowd. The shot clock ticks down. Will the ball go in? The suspense is pure torture, but you wouldn't miss this for the world. And the replays just don't cut
The
it.
sideline, the man bleeds for three.
TuneIn Premium brings you every minute of the NBA season streaming live, so you can be there when it matters most. Hear it now. Hear it live on TuneIn.
Fake in the lane, turnaround jumper from 8 feet is good on
Search
the right.
NBA Today to start listening.
Don't want to miss a second of your NFL team's next matchup? Let TuneIn remind you. Just make sure notifications are enabled on your phone and search for your team profile on the TuneIn app. Then, find the game you want under events and tap Notify Me. We'll send you an alert as soon as live coverage begins.
Hey, TuneIn listeners, Steve Kornacki here from NBC News. I want to tell you about a podcast I'm hosting called Article 2, Inside Impeachment. It's dedicated to bringing you the latest developments on the impeachment inquiry into President Trump. Every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, I talk to NBC News reporters who are closest to the story to break down what's new, what matters, and what it means for the 2020 election. Search and favorite Article 2, Inside Impeachment on TuneIn.
This is not a commercial. This is a reminder. With TuneIn Premium, you could be listening to more music commercial-free. Get over 45 commercial-free music stations. Visit TuneIn.com/premium to upgrade.
The Bloomberg Interactive Brokers Studio in New York. Bloomberg 1130 to Washington, D.C. Bloomberg 99.1 to Boston. Bloomberg 106.1 to San Francisco. Bloomberg 960 to the country. Sirius XM Channel 119 and around the globe. The Bloomberg Business app and BloombergRadio.com. This is Bloomberg Business Week.
Deals happening all around. A potential trade deal. Now, apparently a deal reached to avert a government shutdown. We're going to break down the trade piece of it, at least, in just a few minutes with Sarah McGregor.
We'll get to that in just a moment, plus the chart of the day. But first up, let's get back to your top business stories. A look at trading with 29 minutes to go, Charlie Pellet.
29 minutes indeed. The Dow, the S&P, and NASDAQ all advancing, making a run for the best level of the day. Right now, we have got stocks rising after Bloomberg reported that the Trump administration reached a deal in principle with China on trade. That news breaking just about 1 hour ago. Treasury yields spiking above 1.9%. Right now we've got the 10-year down 29.30 seconds. The yield now 1.89%. S&P's up 26, a gain of 0.8%. Dow Industrials up 233 points, up 0.8%. And NASDAQ higher by 58. That's a gain of 0.7%. Gold down 0.4%, $14.69 the ounce. West Texas Intermediate crude up 1.1%, 59.39 a barrel. European Central Bank this morning keeping monetary stimulus unchanged at President Christine Lagarde's first policy meeting, shifting the focus to when she will announce her review of the institution's strategy for safeguarding the Eurozone economy. As for the overall market backdrop and the interest rate environment, Julia Coronado is the president and founder of Macro Policy Perspectives.
We need to keep in mind, especially when thinking about equity valuations, why rates are lower for longer. And one of the key reasons is there isn't a growth driver that we're seeing. So, sure, Christine Lagarde expresses optimism that we could be stabilized, maybe move a little bit higher in growth. But there's no strong growth impulse, neither from fiscal, not from China, not from the usual suspects.
And again, trade optimism sending stocks higher, recapping S&P up 26, up 0.8%. I'm Charlie Pelleton. That is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
Charlie, thanks a lot. You're listening to Bloomberg Business Week here on Bloomberg Radio.
They come, go, they live, they grow, they pass, go.
That is REM. It's a deep cut from the Out of Time album, and I'm not getting the name of the song.
Time's up. What?
You know,
that's pretty good, though.
That's not bad, Jason.
Thank you.
Three letters. Does that help?
For the album or the song?
For the song. 3 letters.
No.
Low.
Oh, my God.
All right, we're done. Sorry, no time for chart of the day, Dave. I'm just saying, Jason,
go ahead, Dave. Your chart. Low.
All right.
Low. Yeah,
that
I got
sort
it.
of describes what's going on with emerging market stocks. Low. And it's been happening for years now. And this year looked like it might have been a recovery. Didn't happen. Just about 2 weeks ago, the ratio between the MSCI Emerging Markets Index and the MSCI World Index, which tracks, the developed markets, the U.S. or Europe, Japan, etc., fell to its lowest level since 2004. And, just yesterday, the ratio was 1.7% above that low. So it really hasn't done much. It's interesting. Callum Thomas over at Top Down Charts put out this chart, and I reproduced it. And he figures maybe it's time for emerging markets to rebound. They look relatively cheap. The country's economy is maybe more stable based on some of the data that's out there. Since then, I've seen Matt Maley, the strategist at Miller Tabak, and Dan Wachowski, who is a technical analyst over at Janney Capital, also sort of mention emerging markets as perhaps time to emerge, you might say, when you refer to the stocks. But that certainly hasn't been happening, and it's been going on really for the past 8 years or so. The chart tracks the history all the way back to the late 1980s. So if you want to see it, folks, send me an email. I'll get you the chart, the explanation that goes with it, and everything I do going forward. The email address is dwilson@bloomberg.net. That's dwilson@bloomberg.net.
All right, Dave Wilson, thank you so much. Dave Wilson with his chart of the day. He'll be along with his stock of the day a little bit later on.
All right, let's get over to the trade news of the day. And for that, we turn to our own Sarah McGregor, Bloomberg News senior trade editor. She's been in the midst of this story for quite some time. She joins us.
Sarah, wait for it. I thought you had a great headline into this.
Yes.
What was my great headline into it?
Oh, you forgot. He had a great line about it's like phase 3.
Oh, yeah. No, I was looking at Justin Sink's Twitter feed. Sorry. And he said, we're now at phase 3 of phase 1 of the trade deal. Is that where we are, Sarah?
Yes. I'm, hoping to still be employed after today if there's, there's going to be a phase 4. We don't know of a phase 1 trade deal, but it does sound, drum roll, please, like the negotiators have reached a deal between the U.S. and China. Trump himself earlier today has sort of lined up expectations that, using all caps, they're very close to a big deal with China. And so right now he's in a meeting with his trade advisors. And really, the expectation now that's set out there in the markets, we can see that huge jump to record highs, is that there's going to be the announcement again of a phase 1 deal. What will be different than a few months ago when this was announced by Trump and the Chinese president? Specificity is what we're expecting. We need to know some details. What's in this deal? Is it on paper finally? When will it be signed? So I think if the ball can move forward from that, that will be a huge sort of win, I suppose. And ultimately, if these tariffs that were scheduled for Sunday are going to be delayed or canceled altogether.
Well, and I do wonder then, so Sarah, do we get hopefully this done and then it just goes away for a long time until we get to phase 2? Or I understand trade is complicated, and I know this has been long in coming, and there's some really tough issues, to be fair. So I just do wonder then, if we get this done, signed, sealed, and delivered, then what?
So I think, if this deal does go through, a lot of it will focus on agriculture purchases by China of U.S. farming goods. That'll be great for Trump going into the election. Obviously, farmers are.
So is this an election trade deal?
I think that, someone who might be a little bit more cynical might think that at this point, Trump will really not want to go necessarily into the election year with a fight, a long, drawn-out trade war with China still going on. He will want to go back in showing that he's got something to show from it, and perhaps this phase one deal is the way to do it, again, to appease farmers and maybe to roll back some of the tariffs that China's demanding, which have hurt the U.S. economy and have hurt importers who pay those tariffs. So perhaps at this point, an easing of the trade tensions and the trade war and some of these purchases and rollback of tariffs might be, in Trump's eyes, a good thing. It also, as we can see today, always bumps up the stock market. So that never hurts.
All right, so Sarah, 30 seconds left. We're just waiting for a signature at this point?
Well, we are still waiting to hear from Trump today whether there is a deal. Of course, he's been presented with these things in the past and sort of torn them up, at what seemed to be the final hour. So really, we want to hear from him first, and we just want to see the specifics. What's in this deal? What's different? Is it on paper? Have they really agreed to something that moves the ball forward?
All right, Sarah McGregor, thank you so much. We know it's an incredibly busy day tracking all things trade. She joined us from our bureau in Los Angeles. New York Fed naming Dalip Singh head of its markets group. So many headlines today. It's a busy day. For more headlines, let's get to Bob Moon. He's got World National. Hey, Bob.
Jason, thank you very much. Breaking news on more than one matter involving the White House today. Again, Democrat Nita Lowey saying a deal has been reached to avert a government shutdown. Congress would need to pass a bill that the president would have to sign. And according to people briefed on the plans, U.S. negotiators have reached the terms of a phase one trade deal with China that now awaits President Trump's approval. Trade advisors were said to be meeting to discuss the agreement this afternoon, with an announcement coming perhaps by day's end, according to those people briefed on the matter. The House Judiciary Committee is going back and forth on impeaching President Trump. Democrats certain of an open deal with the president. And let's join Bloomberg's Irv Chapman now with the latest from Capitol Hill.
Yes, Bob. Democrats certain of an open and shut case of abuse of power. Republicans certain there's nothing there. The chairman's gavel has kept the partisans from interrupting much as they took their turns. Republican Debbie Lesko agreed with President Trump that the impeachment effort is a sham.
It just continues to amaze me how corrupt, how unfair this process has been from the start. I mean, come on. This is a predetermined. You guys have been wanting to impeach this president since he got elected.
Democrats insisted their disagreements with the president on climate change, immigration, health insurance are irrelevant, that his using foreign aid to promote his reelection is the issue. Bob?
Global news 24 hours a day on air, and this is Bloomberg. I'm Bob Moon.
Asset managers who seize change to launch new strategies, add distribution channels, or exploit new technology to re-engineer the investor experience are often rewarded. However, in an industry paralyzed with complexity, few act with agility or decisively. Few run their businesses strategically, yet the most competitive managers in the market know with the right partner and a flexible operating system, you can. Go boldly toward change with SEI Investment Manager Services.
I'm Steve Meyer, president of SEI's Investment Manager Services. At SEI, we understand the emerging forces that will define success for asset managers and what firms will need to compete tomorrow. That's why we continually optimize SEI's global operating platform. If your business requires greater agility, our advanced technology, integrated best-in-class systems, and multi-asset expertise can be your catalyst for business transformation.
With SEI Investment Manager Services, you lead the charge in a competitive marketplace. Learn more at SEIC.com/seize change.
Business is constantly evolving. Is your financial printer evolving to keep ahead of the curve? At Command Financial, we are redefining financial printing by providing industry-leading expertise, leveraging technology, and honing processes and best practices. Every day, Command helps SEC registrants, as well as members of their working groups, including securities attorneys and investment bankers, prepare, file, and disseminate regulatory and disclosure documents, such as registration statements, M&A documents, and mutual fund prospectuses and reports. Command provides a full range of services to help you effectively complete your deal, meet your disclosure requirements, and achieve your shareholder communications objectives. Visit our website at commandfinancial.com and learn how we're evolving, not only with the times, but also with your business requirements. Command Financial, redefining financial printing.
Are you curious what others are listening to on TuneIn? Head to the trending section under Browse to see the most popular stations and podcasts among TuneIn listeners right now. Check it out. You might just discover something new for yourself.
Want to hear about the latest and greatest things to listen to on TuneIn? For reminders of the biggest live sports games, debates, and breaking news stories, follow @TuneIn on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to stay connected with the audio that matters to you.
Hey, NFL fan, can't watch the game? Can't be there? No biggie. With your TuneIn Premium membership, you already have an all-access pass to every team and every game in the league. Amazing, right?
Steps up, floats it towards at the goal line. It's intercepted.
Listen live as the action unfolds or on demand when you can. Anytime, anywhere, all season long.
Right side, it is caught. It is in for the right side for the touchdown.
Search NFL today. Don't want to miss a second of your NFL team's next matchup? Let TuneIn remind you. Just make sure notifications are enabled on your phone and search for your team profile on the TuneIn app. Then, find the game you want under events and tap Notify Me. We'll send you an alert as soon as live coverage begins.
Those up, dart toward the end zone. Caught, ball, touchdown.
NFL fans, hear every live game on TuneIn Premium.
Mahomes throwing off the back foot. He wants McCall. Hardman, he's got the catch at the 15. Jukes at the 10. 5, touchdown.
Today, hear the home and away call as the New York Jets visit the Baltimore Ravens at 8:20 p.m. Eastern.
It's a block, 20, 25, 30. It's a foot race, 40.
At
50.
home or on the go, hear the home and away call of every NFL game this season on TuneIn Premium. Upgrade today.
Pascal gobbles up the rebound and slams it down.
Catch your favorite NBA team right here on TuneIn.
A step back, deep three is up and in.
Search NBA on TuneIn and hear all the action. The NBA lives on TuneIn.
Hey, TuneIn listeners, Steve Kornacki here from NBC News. I want to tell you about a podcast I'm hosting called Article 2, Inside Impeachment. It's dedicated to bringing you the latest developments on the impeachment inquiry into President Trump. Every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, I talk to NBC News reporters who are closest to the story to break down what's new, what matters, and what it means for the 2020 election. Search and favorite Article 2, Inside Impeachment on TuneIn.
The puck drops. 12 players face off to win. The suspense is pure torture, but you wouldn't miss this for the world. TuneIn brings you every minute of the NHL season. Listen live to hockey when it matters most on TuneIn.
Upgrade to TuneIn Premium and get over 45 commercial-free music stations. You'll also get live commercial-free news, plus live play-by-play games from NFL, MLB, NBA, and NHL. Visit TuneIn.com/premium to upgrade.
We can't make traffic move faster during rush hour, but we can help you catch up on the news with TuneIn. With live around-the-clock news from MSNBC.
In the UK, they're significantly worse. When the president gets up to the podium...
CNBC and Fox News Talk.
The Fox News poll sizing up the race for 2020 found that each of the 5 top Democrats...
You can use your stop and go for good by staying in touch with the world. Search news to hear what's happening now.
Industry-leading solutions for hedge funds and other alternative managers. Visit Pershing.com. Pershing LLC. Member FINRA, NYSE, SIPC.
Message and data rates may apply. T&C and privacy terms can be found at Babbel.com/terms. Please don't text and drive.
Have you wanted to speak a new language, but you thought it'd be too hard or take too much time? Then try Babbel for free by texting EXPLORE to 64,000. In just 15 minutes a day, you'll be on your way to speaking a new language in just a few weeks. And right now, you can try Babbel for free. Babbel starts out teaching you words and phrases by matching them with pictures. You won't believe how easy the interactive program is. Soon the sentences get a little bigger, and before you know it, you're having simulated conversations voiced by native speakers. And because Babbel is crafted by language experts and uses the spaced repetition method, in just 10 to 15 minutes a day, you'll be speaking the language of your choice with real confidence. With Babbel, you can speak a language. Just text EXPLORE to 64,000 and start your first lesson in the language of your choice for free. Download the Babbel app or text EXPLORE to 64,000 and try it for free. Text EXPLORE to 64,000.
Markets, headlines, and breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
From Bloomberg World Headquarters, I'm Charlie Pellet. We've got 13 minutes to go ahead of the closing bell. Stocks higher after Bloomberg reported that the Trump administration reached a deal in principle with China on trade. Treasury yields spiked above 1.9%. Right now we have got the S&P up 28 at 3170, heading for a record close, up 0.9%. The Dow up 237 points, up 0.9%. NASDAQ up 62. That's a gain of 0.7%. 10-year down 30 seconds, yield 1.89%. Gold down 0.3%, 14.70 the ounce. And West Texas Intermediate crude up 1.1%, 59.42 a barrel. Lyft has announced it will have a rental car service with unlimited miles for selected users in the Bay Area and Los Angeles. Looking at shares of Avis, ticker CAR, they are dropping 5%. Hertz shares lower now by 5.3%. And that's a Bloomberg Business Flash.
I'm driving in my car. I turn on the radio.
How about you let me drive? Oh, no.
Who's gonna drive you home?
Honey, please, I'll do the driving.
Drive on.
Excuse me, I want to drive.
Just drive, baby.
It's the question that drives us.
This is the Drive to the Close.
That funky music will drive us till the dawn.
On Bloomberg Radio.
It is time for the Drive to the Close.
It is indeed.
Yana Barton is back with us, Equity Portfolio Manager at Eaton Vance, joining us on the phone from Boston. I don't know if you're able to keep up with the headlines. We're barely doing it.
Same here.
Yeah, great to have you here, too. Also, trade, U.S.-China. How does this essentially kind of change your portfolio models if indeed we get phase one, done?
Thanks again for having me back. I mean, who would have thought, right, in a year that has been marred by all these tariff disputes, geopolitical blow-ups, tweets, and so forth, the market is up over 28%, and it just tells you that perhaps not all good news is in the market and there's still value to be had. I think as it relates to our focused growth portfolio, where we have about 35 positions, we're investing mostly within the secular growth theme around them, so we're investing for the long term. And while this is certainly more positive for cyclically oriented areas of the market, I think the dividends of this type of headline is obviously as it relates to corporate confidence, which should yield better corporate investment outcomes and therefore corporate profitability, which should enable the stocks to go higher.
Well, and to that point, Yana, I mean, is this something, and this is probably unknowable, but I'm going to ask you anyway, is this the sort of thing that if you're putting yourself in the seat of a CEO, that is enough to essentially maybe give you some confidence, as you say, to actually make some moves, or does it just maybe remove some of the worry, if you catch my nuance there?
I do. I think, the devil is in the details, and all of us have yet to see what the actual details about this development will be. But I think what you're seeing is, again, the fact that they can come to the table and come out with any type of deal, phase one, skinny deal, whatever you want to call it. I think it allows us to think, okay, this is the first step of what could be a multi-series endeavor. And now I will at least know what the rules of engagement are, and I can proceed into 2020 and beyond. We've been talking about sort of, we're entering a new decade. We talk about 2020 vision. And the interesting is that it comes to investments, and you guys know this better than anyone, the longer your time horizon, the clearer the picture gets. Unlike, in our eyesight, the closer we are to something, the clearer we think we can see. But actually, as you have alluded in the beginning of the program, if you're following every headline, the more fuzzy the picture becomes, because you're acting and reacting to every news data point. So I think most importantly, I think if anything, this certainly gives the bullish sentiment to the profitability picture into 2020, which is looking to be about 9% earnings growth. Now recall, this year we might come out with 0, so this is better than 0, and then it might allow us.
But it's coming off the low, right? Or
exactly.
Not? The comparison is not great.
Exactly. I mean, anything off of 0 will look better on a comp basis, but at least now we have some earnings growth, and ultimately profitability should drive price of stocks.
So, Jana, what we got from the Fed yesterday, last meeting of 2019, that the Fed it looks like it might be on hold for all of 2020. We had a guest, Diane Swang, covering the Fed yesterday, and she said, well, we could see a rate cut next year. And I do wonder, if that's the backdrop, that we get nothing, no Fed activity at all, no Fed movement, what kind of backdrop is that for corporate earnings? Is it even better than maybe potentially the expectations that you just laid out for us? What does it mean for the investment environment?
I think, what we heard from the Fed is that they remain accommodative and they remain on the sidelines, which is good news. And I think their job is to manage financial system stability, not financial market stability. And somebody made that point very clear yesterday, which I think is extremely important. The markets can overreact to a headline, a comment, or...
One of our guests actually said that, Jeff Rosenberg over at BlackRock, that the whole idea is about, not financial market stability, but making sure that, money markets aren't tightening and that there's, access to that market for companies and so on and so forth.
Yeah, but I think if you look at sort of, where we are on the 10-year number here at 1.9 and the effective Fed funds rate, it's still extremely accommodative. We were talking about, 1 3/4 or so. So nobody will say that it is restraining any kind of investment or financing activity. And if anything, perhaps this is the time for someone to, move the baton from the monetary policy to fiscal policy. Hey, wouldn't it be great if we now get stimulus from the government and actually investment and spending that is stemming from a completely different side of the equation? I think it's good news.
Well, and speaking of different sides of the equation, Jana, we've been joking, but only a little bit about if trade does get resolved, what are we going to talk about every day? But in all seriousness, what does the market worry about if it's not worried about trade?
Let's go back to basics and fundamentals and
like earnings or something.
Exactly, wouldn't it be something? But one of the questions as a growth manager that I constantly get is, given the fact that the growth indices have gone up over 30%, everyone is sort of calling for this rotation into value, understandably because it has underperformed. But I will recall Buffett's very famous quote, and that is, "Price is what you pay, but value is what you get." And I think there's a lot of value in the market that is not being talked about, and much of it is in higher growth areas because of the multiples assigned to areas like healthcare, like consumer discretionary communication services, compared to something that is like REITs and UTs that have been bid up because of this uncertainty. So I think we're going to be talking stocks, and I welcome that conversation.
All right. We're going to leave it on that note. Jana, thank you so much. Jana Barton, Equity Portfolio Manager at Eaton Vance, on the phone from Boston. So she, like a lot of other folks, sounds like we're looking forward to being able to move beyond trade. Look, it is interesting to see where the conversation goes.
Well, absolutely. And keep in mind, we are going into an election year in 2020. So that's probably what we're actually going to be talking about. But, going back to something Jana said at the top, this notion of, does business sentiment change, I think really will be a key question here, because we've talked so much. We were talking about it yesterday with Scott Miner, this dichotomy, this divergence, I should say, between a cautious business and an enthusiastic consumer. If you have enthusiastic consumers and enthusiastic businesses, then, there may be no stopping this never-ending bull run.
Right, and if there's still, if there's pressure on companies to make their earnings numbers, then they've got to keep, if there's uncertainty out there, they're not going to spend, they're going to cut more costs, and that impacts workers and, of course, spending in the economy. But if you take away some of the uncertainties, then they're likely to be more optimistic and go out there and spend a little bit. So, yeah, good conversation. So Folks, just a few minutes left in today's trading day. We'll count you down to the closing bell. Take a look at some of the stocks on the move. You're listening to Bloomberg Business Week on Bloomberg Radio.
Leave a mince pie out for Santa this Christmas and you might find the whole pack disappears. At Asda, our extra special luxury mince pies are just £1.39 and our extra special slow gin mince pies are only £2. Well, Santa might like to try something different. Asda, let's make Christmas extra special. Selected stores subject to availability. 6 pies per pack.
Heading for the net. Scores! On the goal line. Marchand scores!
Hockey fans, the 2019-20 NHL season is here.
And tucks it home!
And with this team, it's really fun to be a part of a team like that.
You can hear the action live on TuneIn Premium. From regular season action to the All-Star Game and through the Stanley Cup in June. Hear the home and away call for every game, for every team live. At home or on the go, never miss a game with the NHL on TuneIn Premium.
Upgrade today.
Hey, NFL fan, can't watch the game? Can't be there? We've got you covered. With TuneIn Premium, you can listen to every NFL game live as it's happening.
LaShawn McCoy has an opening on the right side, punches into the end zone for the touchdown.
Or catch it later on demand.
Offset backs behind Mahomes. The give is to Williams. Starts right, cuts it back to the left, and blows into the end zone for the touchdown.
You call the plays. Follow the NFL anytime, anywhere, all season long with TuneIn Premium. Upgrade today. Want TuneIn to remind you when the big NFL game is about to get underway? Be sure notifications are allowed on your phone and search NFL on the TuneIn app. Find the game you want to hear under events and tap Notify Me. We'll let you know exactly when it's time to listen in for kickoff.
Want to hear about the latest and greatest things to listen to on TuneIn? For reminders of the biggest live sports games, debates, and breaking news stories, follow @TuneIn on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to stay connected with the audio that matters to you.
From the financial capital of the world, 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, on the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is Bloomberg Radio. Markets, headlines, and breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is a Bloomberg Business Lab.
From Bloomberg World Headquarters, I'm Charlie Pellet. Records for NASDAQ and the S&P 500 index. Stocks advanced on trade optimism. Folks from Shutterstock ringing that closing bell. Again, S&P up 26 to a record 3168, a gain there of 0.9%. NASDAQ up 63, higher by 0.7%, 8717 on the NASDAQ Composite Index. And the Dow up 220 points, up by 0.8%. Stocks rallied after Bloomberg reported that the Trump administration has reached a deal in principle with China on trade. Iana Barton is equity portfolio manager at Eaton Vance. She was our guest moments ago right here on Bloomberg Business Week.
I think what you're seeing is, again, the fact that they can come to the table and come out with any type of deal, phase one, skinny deal, whatever you want to call it. I think it allows us to think, okay, this is the first step of what could be a multi-series endeavor, and now I will at least know what the rules of engagement are, and I can proceed into 2020 and beyond.
Indeed, a potential deal would likely avert fresh tariffs due to take hold Sunday. A breakthrough on trade would remove a major overhang for equity investors just a day after the Federal Reserve signaled it's in no rush to raise interest rates as the economy shows improvement. So again, the Dow, the S&P, and NASDAQ all advancing, just getting the latest quarterly numbers out of Oracle. Second quarter adjusted revenue, $9.62 billion, estimates there. 9.65. We'll sort through the numbers. We'll have more coming up right here on Bloomberg Business Week. 10-year, the yield there 1.89%. Gold down 0.3%, $14.70 the ounce. West Texas Intermediate crude oil up just about 1% today, $59.32 a barrel. So again, recapping here, S&P up 26, a gain there of 0.9%. At a record on the S&P, the Dow up 220, higher by 0.8%. NASDAQ up 63. That was a gain of 0.7%. I'm Charlie Pellet, and that's a Bloomberg Business Flash.
Move around. Motion creates the motion.
I feel the earth move under my feet.
You move like they do. I've never seen anyone move that fast.
All right, people, let's move like we've got a purpose. Company's called Movers and Shakers. They cost a little more, but that name cracked me up.
Business Week. Movers and Shakers with Carol Messer and Jason Kelly on Bloomberg Radio.
So let's talk about some of the stocks on the move. Carol Master along with Jason Kelly in our Bloomberg Interactive Broker studio. Big picture, 384 names in the S&P 500 higher today. A little bit of lift on expectations of a trade deal between the U.S. and China. That's certainly bearing out in the financial equity markets specifically. 121 names lowered, none unchanged. But we got to talk a little bit more about Oracle. Stocks down 2.7% here, Jason, in the after hours. Charlie breaking the numbers out with their earnings after the closing bell. Second quarter adjusted revenue, it's a little light, just barely though. $9.62 billion versus $9.65 billion was the estimate that Wall Street was expecting. Just at EPS, though, for the second quarter, 2 cents better, 90 cents versus 88 cents expected. Cloud services, license support revenue, $6.81 billion. That looks like a pretty big number. We'll have to get some comparison there. Adjusted operating margins, this is important, 42% versus 43% year over year. So a little bit of a reining in on that. So it's not out of the park. And Oracle, what's it doing for the year? It's up 25%.
Yeah, I mean, it feels like we're now in this moment, and we'll probably talk about Lululemon in a minute just to get their numbers or their reaction today after the results yesterday, where, yeah, you got to do pretty well especially if you've had a nice year.
Right.
You've got to do pretty well for investors to keep rewarding you because, keep in mind, investors have felt pretty good about this year. And so the show me becomes that much harder.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that's why.
And I should point out, I'm just looking at some of our Oracle coverage. You're looking at a stock where there are 7 buys, 24 holds, and 4 sells. So the sell side sort of feels like maybe just kind of hang on to it, but don't pile in.
Yeah, so it's definitely going to be a stock already, like as we said, moving in the after hours, now down about just shy of 3%, but it's certainly a name that we'll watch in tomorrow's session. Let's talk Lululemon because you've got a story in the magazine really talking about the private equity involvement in the company and returns that the PE, not sector, but one firm in particular.
Yeah, Advent International, they were the investor there, and that is the subject of a story in Business Week. Check that out in the magazine, and long-form interview with the CEO and the lead director there. That name ended up down 3.7%. It was down as much as 6.4%. And basically, this is a case, sort of what I was alluding to earlier with Oracle, where the forecast seemed to be the thing that spooked investors a little bit, basically saying it's going to be maybe as good as the estimate, and that's not enough for a company that has really been crushing it.
Essentially doubled this year.
Yeah, up 83%, I believe, when all is said and done for the year.
One thing I want to mention, and Dave kicked off our broadcast with this, that the news that there could be a trade deal, also China considering maybe Macau as becoming a new financial center for Asia. This is why anything that was sensitive to U.S.-China trade policy and those two kind of headlines in particular, those names really shot up. Win was up 9.5% today. The chip sector, right? Technology, very sensitive to U.S.-China trade. AMD was up almost 8% today. Western Digital was up more than 5% today. So, these are names that definitely play into when you wonder about what's the impact of these trade headlines. There you have it.
Right. Well, and L Brands is one of your best performers too today, making up for a little bit of a rough day yesterday, I believe. And you've got one analyst out there basically saying the market doesn't quite understand this, so maybe this stock is a little cheap. So that's a name we're going to keep watching. But as you say, those China-exposed stocks, those seem to be really catching a bid today.
And it looks like some investment calls on the housing sector, and that maybe impacted some of the names there because we do see Lennar down 2.8% and D.H. Horton down about 2.8%. So it looks like some news on that. Let's do the VIX.
Check on the VIX. Volatility down about 6.7% today, closing at 13.98. This is Bloomberg.
All right, Dave, you're up.
Hi, my name is Dave.
Wilson, where are you? Wilson!
Just what do you think you're doing, Dave?
We're going for the price on Wilson.
Open up the door, it's Dave. Who? Dave.
Hey,
Dave, Dave Wilson back with us with his stock of the day, talking about Ciena. This is a name that's been around for a while, right?
Oh, it has. And it's a company that supplies fiber optic network equipment along with related software and services. Now, the company's history can be divided into two periods. Its first decade and then everything after that. Yeah. Ciena was founded in 1992 and went public in 1997 as an internet-driven bull market was underway. The ticker, by the way, CIEN. The shares surged more than 13-fold through October 2000, and then they plunged as much as 98% in the next 2 years. Ciena has barely rebounded since then, even though it's posted an adjusted profit in every fiscal year since 2013. The company released fourth quarter results today, and fortunately for Ciena stockholders, the focus was on the future and not on the past. Ciena's sales forecast for the current fiscal year lived up to analyst expectations based on Bloomberg survey. The company raised 3-year goals for profitability, specifically a gauge called adjusted operating margin, and also for cash flow. All this outweighed last quarter's earnings, which trailed analyst average estimate for the first time in 6 quarters. And in response to all this, Ciena's shares had their biggest gain in 6 months. They rose about 20.5%.
That's a lot.
It is. 2 quarters ago, the earnings come out, stock was up almost 27%. So,
yeah,
some of the results anyway are going over well.
It is interesting. I mean, I remember that company
Ciena
from back in the day, based down in Maryland. I mean, it was in that sort of cohort of companies there in the Mid-Atlantic that were so, you think about MCI and those companies that really defined, that era of telecom. Dave Wilson, thank you so much.
Oh, okay. You're listening to Bloomberg Business Week. Jason.
Sorry, I was coughing.
Sorry, I was checking out
Carol's like,
Ciena.
wait, what, me? Oh, yeah, I'm here. What? Present.
Our thanks to Dave Wilson, of course, for his chart of the day, his stock of the day, and so much more. All right, you're listening to Bloomberg Business Week. We'll get Jason some water. In the meantime, back to World and National News headlines and a Bob Moon.
Carol, thank you. The House Judiciary Committee is pressing toward a historic vote to approve articles of impeachment against President Trump. Split sharply along party lines. They voted down one, then another Republican amendment. They introduced a third, stating the president released aid to Ukraine when it enacted anti-corruption laws. Bloomberg's Herb Chapman is live on Capitol Hill with the latest.
Bob, the debate was prolonged by that new amendment, with Democrats reiterating that the president pressed Ukraine only for his own political advantage and thwarted the right of Congress to investigate him. Jamie Raskin brought up the president's paying a fine for misusing his own charity as another incidence of his own corruption.
This is the guy that they want us to believe was shaking down the president of Ukraine because he had some secret anti-corruption agenda that actually wasn't related to the Bidens. Come on, get real.
Republicans reiterated that President Trump had policy reasons to delay military aid to Ukraine, described as one of the most corrupt countries in the world. Bob?
Herb Chapman, thank you. New Zealand police and military specialists have launched a risky operation at the site of an erupting island volcano. They don protective clothing and special breathing gear to recover the bodies of 8 victims. Former football star Michael Vick is in trouble with the law again. He owes tens of thousands of dollars in unpaid taxes, officials say, on luxury cars he owned in Virginia. According to the Daily Press of Newport News, officials say Vick owes the city of Hampton about $70,000. Vick lived in Virginia after serving time in prison for running a dogfighting operation. Global News, 24 hours a day, on air and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. I'm Bob Moon.
You can't be the only one who spends time examining angles.
This sort of mini deal, what would it look like?
Considering possibilities.
From a credit perspective, this is good news.
Planning for eventualities.
This company really has to get back on a growth track.
You're right. The others are here.
General Electric is such an interesting story.
Bloomberg Markets with Lisa Abramowitz and Paul Sweeney. Weekday mornings at 10 Eastern. On Bloomberg Radio, the Bloomberg Business app, and BloombergRadio.com. Bloomberg, the world is listening.
Listen, as a hiring manager, I've got to tell you, the best job candidate isn't always the typical candidate. Sometimes they're a grad of life.
Meet the grads of life.
Young adults of unique determination and experience, an ideal fit for your company in an entry-level position, internship, or mentorship. They might not have every qualification you typically look for, but they're exactly who your company needs.
Sometimes the best candidates aren't the ones you're used to.
Go to gradsoflife.org to learn how to find, cultivate, and train this great pool of untapped talent. Brought to you by the Ad Council and gradsoflife.org.
Are you interested in a challenging and exciting career? One where you can be part of solving complex challenges across industries and geographies. Bloomberg's ever-expanding technology, data, news, and media services foster innovation, empower clients, and offer nearly limitless opportunities for career growth. Visit Bloomberg.com/careers today to view our current job opportunities. Bloomberg LP is an equal opportunity employer. The address once again is Bloomberg.com/careers.
Imagine being fired because of who you love. Imagine being denied medical treatment because of who you marry. Imagine being evicted because of who you are. Millions of Americans don't have to imagine this. They have to live it. Because in 31 states, it's legal to discriminate against LGBT people. Get the facts at beyondido.org. Brought to you by the Gill Foundation and the Ad Council.
For the independent bookseller who found you that first edition. For the baker who brings the smell of freshly baked bread to your door.
And for the barista who never needs to ask your name.
We've all got a part to play.
Every little tap keeps your high street alive.
And helps your communities thrive.
So if you love where you live, shop small.
Shopping on your local high street can make a big difference. Shop small. Only by American Express.
Christmas songs.
Sound great, don't they?
None of them sound great to me anymore.
Not even the one that goes skilly-boo, skilly-boo, skilly.
No, definitely not that.
Well, how about the new Sonos Beam Smart Soundbar with the Google Assistant, so you can enjoy great sound and control it with your voice?
Can it play the blues?
More than blues, Mark. It plays millions of songs, and it's only £329, saving you £70.
Millions of non-Christmas songs. Sounds great.
Make anyone's Christmas with the Sonos Beam Smart Soundbar at Curry's PC World. Was $399 from 31st October to 27th November 19.
This week at Tesco, whole beef roasting joints and whole legs of lamb are half price. That's a whole lot of halves off a whole lot of wholes. What a mouthful. Tesco, delivering Christmas for 100 years. Max 2 per customer, selected stores, excludes Express, ends 31st of December.
Want to know a quick, easy way to see if your favorite podcasts have a new episode available? Just go to the home screen on your TuneIn app and see the latest editions under the Your New Episode section. Happy listening.
Hey, NFL fan, can't watch the game? Can't be there? We've got you covered. With TuneIn Premium, you can listen to every NFL game live as it's happening.
LaShawn McCoy has an opening on the right side, punches into the end zone for the touchdown.
Or catch it later on demand.
Offset backs behind Mahomes. The give is to Williams. Starts right, cuts it back to the left, and blows into the end zone for the touchdown.
You call the plays. Follow the NFL anytime, anywhere, all season long with TuneIn Premium. Upgrade today.
This is not a commercial. This is a reminder. With TuneIn Premium, you could be listening to more music commercial-free. Get over 45 commercial-free music stations. Visit TuneIn.com/premium to upgrade.
The swagger of a perfect dunk. The rush of a three made from all the way downtown. The adrenaline surge of great defense. Can you feel the goosebumps yet? There's nothing like live NBA and nothing like listening live on TuneIn.
Giannis down the lane to the rim, throwing right corner three, another one.
TuneIn Premium brings you every minute of the NBA season, so you can be there when it matters most. Never miss the action as it happens. Hear the ball you love. Hear it live on TuneIn. Search NBA today to start listening.
Whether you call yourself a Democrat, Republican, Independent, or something else, the road to 2020 is on TuneIn.
What a night!
And a complete earthquake. This was
Follow every step of the Democratic primaries while hearing the latest headlines from the White House with live 24-hour news from CNN, MSNBC, Fox News Talk, and more.
We're closing in on the first results in the battle for the White House.
Experience the election through the sources you trust with the nonstop news channels on TuneIn.
From ESPN and the award-winning producers of The Sterling Affairs comes the latest season of 30 for 30 podcasts. 4 brand new stories of espionage,
He wanted this team to be the Barcelona of women's basketball.
resilience.
I started to scream. I tried to get away.
Corruption.
It's the culture of win at all costs.
And rebirth.
How will we ever rebuild it?
30 for 30 Podcasts, Season 6. Listen now to 30 for 30 Podcasts on TuneIn.
Markets, headlines, and breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
From Bloomberg World Headquarters, I'm Charlie Pellet, just getting the latest numbers out of Costco. First quarter EPS, $1.90, estimates there, $1.72. We'll be watching that story. Oracle reported adjusted revenue for the second quarter that missed the average analyst estimate. Oracle shares there tumbling now down by about 1.4%. Records on Wall Street today with the S&P climbing 26 points to 3168, up 0.9%. NASDAQ also at a record, up 63, up 0.7. The Dow up 220 points, up by 0.8%. Stocks rallied as optimism grew that the Trump administration will clinch a deal with China on trade and avert fresh tariffs. The 10-year, the yield there, 1.89%. Gold down 0.3%, 14.69 the ounce. West Texas Intermediate crude oil up 0.9%, 59.27 a barrel. I'm Charlie Pellet, and that is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
All right, Charlie, thank you so much. Quick check on Costco shares, just up about 0.6% here in the after hours. This is Bloomberg Radio.
We traded hearts, waited on where the trade winds play.
All right, with us in the studio is one of my favorite reporters at Bloomberg, not to put any pressure on him, but he has such an interesting beat because it's sort of the intersection of regulation but more to the point, enforcement and Wall Street. And the headline grabbed me alone. Wall Street is being hunted by futures cops for government leaks. Matt Robinson is here. Love his stuff. And when I first read this, Matt, I confess, I thought it said future cops and that this was like a total recall sort of thing. But we're talking about futures, as in stock futures, and other derivative type instruments. What's going on here?
So we all know about the SEC policing insider trading. So this is the lesser known regulator, the CFTC. They have expanded powers under Dodd-Frank to police insider trading in their markets. So our story is about the expanded efforts there, and also the Vanity Fair article from October that sort of put a spotlight on this issue, but the regulators didn't find any wrongdoing there.
Yeah. So remind us what that article was about, because that caused, shall we say, a bit of a kerfuffle and a lot of denials and a lot of skepticism, but also obviously some real actual investigations.
Right. So that article pointed out or made the case that there were a lot of big trades going on right around geopolitical events. Talking about making billions of dollars ahead of everyone else,
essentially front running like big decisions by the administration. Right.
Yeah. Basically. Yeah. And so the CFTC looked at that because it's the instrument there is an E-mini that's a future, and tried to see if there was any sort of issues there, as well as the SEC.
So, done?
Well, this is something. So the way the government generally investigates insider trading is through technology. It's not going through people's trash or anything like that. It's looking at anonymous trading, and the CFTC historically hasn't done that. So it's been building out its technology. The SEC has.
So the technology wasn't there?
Well, the technology is being built out, right?
Okay.
So they're looking to add to their capabilities, as just like any hedge fund or any other firm is looking to improve their technology as well.
And one of the things that does become clear, I think, in your reporting, and keep us honest here, is that there is a concern that people in high-level government positions could be leaking at some point, because they know that some of what they're doing, especially in an era, I mean, we've spent all day today and all day every day, it feels like, talking about trade. Trade headlines move markets. And so there are people inside any administration, but especially this one, who have information that can move markets.
Absolutely. And this is sort of they're on sort of the vanguard here because of this new power, and also how volatile markets are. I mean, the trade story has been kind of it for the last few months, and moving just today.
Well, so I do wonder about this because of technology, it should be pretty traceable, right? So when all is said and done. So I do wonder, are they continuing to look into this or what?
Yeah, they're always looking for this kind of activity. I mean, the exchanges themselves have to make sure, who's actually trading.
Yeah.
And also on the flip side is, a lot of the hedge funds in a lot of places, they know the world is pretty volatile right now. They're placing bets to see if, is Trump going to make the deal happen? So it can just be, being smart.
Also, hats off to you, because anytime you can get an actual, literal and relevant reference to the movie Trading Places into a story, I mean, that's just well done.
I think that's the first and last.
But it's especially true here because, that was the core of the premise of that movie in a lot of ways. Orange juice futures, right?
Right, exactly. And previously, the CFTC could only you could only worry about front running. You couldn't really police it. It was sort of designed so people could, place trades with inside information. It was a whole hedging market. Right.
So, Matt, I am curious about, I'm thinking about our viewers and our listeners here, obviously on Bloomberg Radio, and viewers in terms of people on Bloomberg.com or on the Bloomberg terminal. How should they read your story, or what's the important thing for them to take note of?
The government has always been focused on insider trading, and they will continue to be, because they have the technology to police it. I mean, they have a pretty sophisticated platform to do so.
And one of the things I certainly took away from this was this notion that it's maybe not just the obvious things that are against the law or are wrong, that they basically have a wider remit at this point to essentially go after bad guys.
Yeah, exactly. And even if it's only a piece of information that helps your decision, that still counts.
Yeah, really interesting.